laws as we did last time.
That's enough.
I know, last time we did when I did
But I
this.
think they were,
Matt, it's the regular file.
you know,
Nobody has a file.
I'm mad at you down there. What are these?
I doubt there's many that accept. Then when they get to 6 or 7, it's maybe the older ones in charge.
Good evening and welcome to the March 8th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Matt McNamara, Chairman of the Board. I'd like to introduce the board here at this time. To my right is Dennis Murphy, who's the Vice Chairman. To his right is Ken Foreman, who's a voting member of the board. To his right is Patty Johnson, who's an associate member of the board. To my left is Tricia Favuli, who is the clerk of the board. To her left is Scott Zielinski, who is a voting member of the board, and to his left, David Haddad, who is an associate member of the board. Far table is Sri Budrow, who is our zoning administrator. This evening, we have just one hearing. It's a comprehensive hearing. And then the board, following that hearing, has a small open meeting that we will conduct. Given the fact that this is a comprehensive permit, the rules are slightly different, and where we do have some folks in the audience, I just want to mention that. One of the major differences with a comprehensive permit, which is subject to Chapter 40B of the Mass General Laws, all it takes is 3 members to have a motion pass or to take action. Generally, under a 40A application, our general special permits, it requires 4 members for that vote. There are some minor differences as we go through. I will try to make everyone aware of that. One of the other major differences, to remind the board as well, is that in the case of a comprehensive permit under Chapter 40B, this board is the sole local permit granting board, so that there may be other boards that typically have to give permits for local bylaws. This is the only board under a comprehensive permit. However, when it comes to state laws or state regulations, we do not have the ability to override those requirements. So with that, I will ask that the clerk read into the record. Oh, and I apologize, one other thing. If anyone does have a cell phone or electronic device, if they would silence it at this time. And our goal is to gather as much testimony as we can to be able to determine whether or not the comprehensive permit meets the local conditions and needs, and we will make sure that there's an opportunity for those in the public to be heard. So with that, I'll ask the clerk to read into the record application 22-12, Habitat for Humanity.
Appeal number 22-12, being all person deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 21 of Chapter 40B of the General Laws, you are hereby notified that Habitat for Humanities of Cape Cod, Inc. of Yarmouthport, Mass. has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, 20 through 23, to construct 2 affordable units on property known as 55 Glenwood Ave, Falmouth, Mass. Publication dates February 13th and February 20th, 2012.
One of the differences with a comprehensive permit is, I'll take care of right now. One of the first things the board needs to do is to determine whether or not the application is complete. And Sri Budrow, our zoning administrator, has reviewed the file, has determined that the application is complete, although we may be asking the applicant to revise and refile that application. But before we can move forward, the board needs to make a motion for a finding that the application is complete.
Second.
Mr. Murphy and Mrs. Favuli, all those in favor of finding that the application is complete, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. All right. Next, before we go into a presentation, is a report from Sri regarding the department technical meeting that was held on February 22nd.
I put it in the file.
Okay.
Sorry. We just met. There were members present there. We reviewed my question on the 5,000 square foot, less than 5,000 square foot lot that's being created. We reviewed the structure, the setbacks, went over the sewer. I did get the answers that I was supposed to. Each unit has to have their own hookup, each lot, their own line to the house. Lidera did get back with me on the height of the structure. What else? What am I missing? I'm sorry.
Basement plans?
I'm sorry, basement plans, I'm sorry, I did get back with me on the basement plans. I have not heard anything back on the 5,000 square foot lot, except that Attorney Brody sent me in an email, which is in the file. I think he meant 40A, not 40B on that, on his answer.
And you have a question on corrected site plan?
I did just speak with Jack. I had sent the referral and concern to Lidara while Jack was on vacation, which was 2.5 weeks ago, and I mentioned it to him now, so maybe they'll show him that referral. I did call his office and found out he was on vacation, and spoke with somebody at his office.
Okay.
And I believe that was pretty much it. We reviewed the site. Those present were the Board of Health, Human Services, Warren and Lidara, Chairman McNamara, myself, and did I say David Carrigan, Board of Health?
Yes. Yep. All right. With that, Lidara, are you making the presentation, or Warren? Okay. Come on up, Warren, and just because you are televised, if you'd introduce yourself, and then the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Warren Brody. I'm an attorney and also a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity of Cape Cod, Inc. With me tonight, in order going down the row, are Jack Landers-Colley, our civil engineer, Victoria Goldsmith, who is our executive director, and Lidara Zola, who's the director of land acquisition. Habitat for Humanity is a Massachusetts nonprofit corporation and an affiliate of Habitat for Humanity International. The town of Falmouth is presently the owner of a parcel of land located at 55 Glenwood Avenue that is the subject of this application. That parcel being actually adjacent to the parcel on which this town hall sits. On April 6, 2010, at the annual town meeting, by a 2/3 majority vote, the town authorized the Board of Selectmen to sell or otherwise convey the parcel, subject to an appropriate restriction that the land be used for affordable housing, and upon such further terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deemed appropriate. A request for proposals was thereafter issued by the town, seeking proposals for the development of either a single-family home or one structure containing a 3-bedroom home ownership unit and a 1-bedroom home ownership unit. Under either option, the units would be sold to an income-eligible household and would be eligible for inclusion in the Department of Housing and Community Development Subsidized Housing Inventory, the SHI. The RFP also states that the construction must be consistent with the architectural style of the neighborhood, and the RFP also envisioned that the development would be pursuant to a comprehensive permit issued under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, and the regulations of the Department of Housing and Community Development under its local initiative program. On February 25, 2011, Habitat submitted its proposal and elected the 2-option unit, that is the development of a 3-bedroom unit and a 1-bedroom unit. Habitat's proposal was accepted by the town on March 20th, 2011. On July 8th, 2011, the town and Habitat entered into a purchase and sale agreement that you will find at tab 4 in the comprehensive permit application. The conveyance of the parcel is to be for a nominal consideration only after the satisfaction of all of the conditions that are found set forth in paragraph 25 of the purchase and sale agreement, including Habitat's obtaining all necessary approvals and permits for the construction, including a comprehensive permit, and that's why we're here tonight. And the conveyance will be subject to an affordable housing restriction that will render the units to be constructed affordable housing units in perpetuity. After receiving letters of support from both the Falmouth Affordable Housing Committee and the Board of Selectmen, Habitat submitted its LIP application, that's the Local Initiative Program application, to DHCD, and DHCD issued its approval letter on December 14, 2011. That approval letter you will find at tab 2 of the application. In addition to approval by the subsidizing agency, Habitat is required to demonstrate that the development is consistent with local needs, which is a function of the percentage of affordable housing units in the town. As of the June 30th, 2011 inventory, Falmouth had 962 units of affordable housing out of its 14,870 year-round units, or 6.5%. The threshold for a 40B application is 10%. So the town being below that, certain consequences flow from the statute. The application before you contains a site plan and a set of architectural plans, and I believe those are also on the easel to my left. As for the site, it's approximately 10,500 square feet. It is in a Residence C zoning district. Town water and sewer service is available to connect to the structures once they're constructed. Parcel is also relatively flat. The architectural plans prepared by Stephen Hayes, which are on sheets S1 and A1 through A3, show the 2 units of affordable housing on the site within one structure, that is a 2-family structure, with a property line extending along a demising wall so as to allow each family, each owner, to own their own house and their own parcel of land. The 1-bedroom unit will have 740 square feet, also 1 bathroom. The 3-bedroom unit has 1,214 square feet. I believe it has 2 baths. We contemplate the construction of a driveway on each side of the structure, with the 1-bedroom unit having 1 parking space and the 3-bedroom unit having 2 parking spaces. We believe that the design is consistent with the architectural character of the neighborhood as required by the request for proposals. The plans have been slightly modified since they were originally submitted with the application due to a potential groundwater table situation. Whereas the original plans called for a full basement, we have now raised the structure and also reduced the height of the basement. So the basement is still functional as a place for a furnace and for washer and dryer, but may not be what we set out to create in the first instance. But that was the compromise that we decided on. Once the comprehensive permit is issued, Habitat will proceed to select purchasers for each unit in accordance with Habitat's established procedures at a sale price that is consistent with the DHCD LIP program and affirmative fair marketing requirements. Eligible purchasers will be selected on the basis of the following. First, their need for decent, affordable housing. Secondly, a maximum annual income equal to or less than 65% of the median income of Barnstable County. Thirdly, the ability to pay, creditworthiness. Families are required to make monthly payments on a long-term mortgage. They have to be able to do that. And the fourth requirement is the family's willingness to partner. Families are required to contribute 250 hours of sweat equity for a single adult family and 500 hours for a 2-adult family, and they participate in the construction of their own house. All Habitat housing units upon completion are sold to an income-eligible family subject to a deed rider that meets the requirements of the LIP program and which protects the units in perpetuity, including if a foreclosure situation. So there's no way that these units will ever be anything other than affordable housing units. We have applied for a comprehensive permit because this is a non-conforming lot. We are seeking relief from a number of zoning bylaw requirements, including minimum lot area, which is 40,000 square feet in a Residence C district. We only have 10,500 or so. Minimum lot width requirement is 100 feet. If we cut the lot in half as we proposed, we won't have anywhere near 100 feet. In fact, we don't have 100 feet to start with. Frontage is also a problem. We do not have 100 feet of frontage for each lot. And the minimum lot width, I believe, cannot be met also. We may be able to meet it with respect to one of the lots, but we need relief from either one or both. Also, with respect to setback, I indicated that we were seeking relief from the minimum setback from the street frontage of 50 feet. I don't think it's 50 feet, I believe it's 25 feet, but we need relief from that also because we're, I believe, 6 feet from the front, and that is consistent architecturally with other structures on the street. We also seek relief from the requirement for parking spaces, which would impose a requirement of 1.5 spaces for a dwelling unit having fewer than 2 bedrooms, and we are proposing a one parking space for the 1-bedroom unit. And just generally speaking, we would ask for relief from any other applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw, planning board rules and regulations, Board of Health rules, and other applicable bylaws, including subdivision regulations, because we are in fact creating a subdivision here. We've also been informed by the Conservation Commission that parts of the lot are within 100 feet of a wetland. I had a discussion yesterday with Jennifer McKay, the Conservation Administrator, to discuss what impact the Wetlands Protection Act may have on the project. We have agreed to hire a wetland scientist to stake out the wetlands that have a bearing on the lot and to prepare a certified plot plan. And we will probably have to proceed with a notice of intent and take whatever steps are required by the Conservation Commission. However, we are not seeking any relief from the Wetlands Protection Act, and because this is a 40B application, the town's wetland regulations, I believe that's Chapter 235, actually don't apply. But we intend to take whatever steps are necessary to meet the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act with the help of the Conservation Commission. I had a quick question. Is this going to be a LEEDs certified?
We build to that standard.
Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
If you're going to speak, because we're on television,
sorry.
you're going to have to get up, introduce yourself, and then comment, okay? Thank you.
Would you address, please, the issue of the quality of the construction?
Right. We based on our...
Just if you could introduce yourself.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Victoria Goldsmith, Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Cape Cod. Based on our experience doing a 13-home LEED certified subdivision, we feel confident that we are building to the LEED gold standard. We do not by any means intend to apply for certification, which is a expensive and both administratively rigorous standard, but we feel that we'll be building to a good environmentally conscious and energy standard.
Thank you.
Energy Star.
Whatever.
We typically construct our housing so that they would qualify for an Energy Star Homes Energy Rating Service rating of less than 60 points. And I believe Habitat has also applied for and obtained a grant from the Community Preservation Committee in the amount of $80,000 for the construction of the house, for which we are mightily grateful. Thank you.
Okay. What we'll do is going to ask the clerk to review the department referrals and correspondence, and then I'm going to go over the application before we then ask questions, okay?
This is from the Engineering Division, who has reviewed the application. It appears that the applicant is proposing to subdivide the property into 2 parcels, as shown on site plan. Proposed interior lot line divides the parcel into 2 lots, has an incorrect bearing label. We recommend that this line's geometry be reviewed and revised. If the single parcel is subdivided into 2 lots, the 2 dwelling units would share a common wall following the internal property line. We recommend that the applicant check state and local fire codes regarding common walls between 2 separate buildings on separate lots if the parcel is subdivided as shown. If the parcel is subdivided, we recommend that a copy of the stamped plan be sent to the engineering division to be reviewed prior to recording at the registry. Glenwood Ave is a public right-of-way. The applicant will have to file a driveway permit application with the engineering division before we sign off on the building permit. We will waive the $50 application fee. The applicant should be aware that there is a refundable performance bond associated with the driveway permit application. We recommend that the contractor file the application and bond and not the applicant. Town Council, the Office of Town Council has no comments. Please note, we may be asked by other departments to assist them with their response. Falmouth Fire and Rescue, Michael F. Small, Deputy Chief, regarding the proposed 40B building on Glenwood Ave, no overriding concerns from the fire department. We've got Department of Housing and Community Development. They have sent us their referral. Cape Cod Commission has also sent it. I'm not going to read it in. It's a number of pages long, but they're endorsing the project. Falmouth Planning Board. At its meeting of February 28, 2012, the Planning Board voted in support of Habitat for Humanity's application for 2 units of affordable housing. The housing production plan voted by the Planning Board and Board of Selectmen and approved by the state calls for the use of town-owned property to underwrite the construction of affordable housing. This project does just that and can be a model to be replicated elsewhere. This is from Conservation. Proposed project falls within 100 feet of the BVW freshwater wetland coastal bank and is located within land subject to coastal storm floodage, flood zone A, in another wetland across the street. The applicant must file a notice of intent. And there's one letter from one abutter, and I'll just read it in. They're unable to make the meeting because they're out of town. As the closest abutter and owner of the property at 55 Glenwood, we want to voice our opposition to the Habitat project as it is currently configured. Their concern is the existing line that passes within 2 feet of our master bedroom wall. Since we bought 63 Glenwood, we would like the previous owners have exclusively used and maintained a small but adequate strip of the 55 Glenwood property closest to our house to ensure privacy and access. There was a proposal on the table to permanently address this problem, but Habitat retracted its offer and now refuses to discuss the issue with us. We offer to pay to install and maintain a row of arborvitaes or other trees about 7 to 8 feet away from our house, and we offer to pay Habitat's expenses to have council review a simple easement for the property line, landscaping. Habitat's recent unwillingness to cooperate with neighbors really makes us apprehensive about the project moving forward. The 55 Glenwood Ave property is in the residential C zoning. It contains 10,500 square feet, and there was once a house on the lot, but the town voluntarily raised it. Since the lot is in common ownership with adjoining property, we question if the lot has the protection of any zoning bylaw grandfather provisions. But even if a single-family house could be constructed on the lot today, the lot is 30% less than required to have an accessory apartment. The point is that the proposed development, its impacts far exceed what residential development would be permitted on the small lot except under Chapter 40B if the Board of Appeals is to approve the project. The board can and should continue its approval to protect neighbors. Such conditions are perfectly appropriate so as long as they will not make the project uneconomical. Property line protection that we have requested, given us privacy and confirming our rights to pass around our house, will have no adverse economic impacts on Habitat and will not interfere in any way with the project's affordability. We would appreciate this consideration. Eric and Linda Zepper. And that's all there is.
For the purposes of the board and the applicant, I just want to go over the application with you because I want to make sure that we have in the file an application that actually represents everything that you're looking for. So if we could just, and I know the board has copies of the application as well. The first page was fine. On the second page, there is dimensions of the entire comprehensive permit project, but it didn't have the dimensions of each of the the 2 lots, and where you are going to be doing a subdivision, we'll need to have those dimensions in the application. I'll wait for you. Okay. On the same page, the date of the site approval letter from DHCD is actually December 2011, and that's important to you because you only have rights under a certain period after that letter has been written. Just below that, the type of housing you're asking for is not multifamily. Yeah, the definition of multifamily in our bylaw is 3 or more units. So even though you described it as a two-family structure, I think, but it's your application that you're actually looking for 2 single-family homes. They happen to be sharing a common wall.
We often call them single-family attached when you do it.
Well, again, I don't want it to be represented as multifamily because it doesn't, it is not what our bylaw defines, okay? On page 3, the relief that you're seeking, the specific exemptions, just for your knowledge, this board never gives a blanket exemption from any other applicable provisions. So if there's any that you specifically want, you need to put them in, or you won't get them from this board. Okay? Page 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth line down, under the current zoning bylaw, how many units would be eligible to be built? And it's an interesting question because I think probably by right 0, but by special permit, not necessarily comprehensive permit, you would have been able to have got 1. Does any portion of the site contain wetlands? Based on what Jennifer McKay has indicated from the Conservation Commission, I guess that would be a yes instead of a no.
No, I believe the answer is correct.
It's within 100 feet, you're right.
Yeah, it's
I
a
apologize.
jurisdictional line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Conservation Commission hearing required. Did she indicate that it's required or that they should apply for notice of intent?
They have to wait until the staking is done.
All right, so I guess we don't know the answer to that. And on MIPA, it says no, but have you actually confirmed that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I think once you find out, if we could just make sure that part of the application is accurate. On page 6, it actually will come up as a question later, but just while we're going over the application, it says the number of handicapped accessible units are 0, but there is a ramp shown on one of the units, and so depending on how you answer that question, the application may need to be updated.
If I may clarify.
Sure, Warren.
We build our units to be visitable by
Right.
handicapped people, but they're not necessarily handicapped accessible. Unless the selected family has a handicapped person, and then we would build to handicap accessibility standards.
All right, so that was just it on the application, so that we can make sure that we're all working off of an accurate application. Okay? And with that, Warren, we're going to start with questions from Dennis Murphy.
Thank you. Warren, just to touch on the last thing Matt just mentioned there, what I believe he was talking about was page 2 of the plans here has a proposed ramp with landing on it, but page 1 doesn't have that. I just want to make sure that what we're looking at is accurate.
Site plan. You're talking about the architectural drawings?
Site plans.
Right.
It is the site plan. I'm happy to show you.
Page 1 and page 2, one has a ramp, one doesn't.
Saying one unit has a ramp and one doesn't?
Yeah.
Or one drawing has a ramp and one doesn't?
One drawing has a ramp, and the
Or one
main
unit.
drawing doesn't. And the elevations don't show it either, so
Mrs. Lee Darazola, who I believe can answer your question.
Thank you, Warren. The ramp is there to show, as Vicki said, we do strive to attain visitability standards, which are basically to allow someone in a wheelchair to come visit someone. So you want to be able to show that a portable ramp could be put into the site. So that was some of the thoughts, and I think there were some sketches that we're looking at if we needed a ramp. And also, I think Warren mentioned, we don't yet know what family is going to be our partner family, and if that family needs accessibility, we want to make sure our plans include that. At this point, there is no ramp envisioned as a permanent structure. Did I get that?
Okay, so the ramp is not part of the...
Yes, short answer.
That's what I need to know.
Okay.
Thank you. And I am concerned, it's a very, very small street, and very narrow, too. I'm very concerned about the one parking spot for the one unit. Perhaps you can go over why you didn't try to work a second spot in there by however means possible?
Maybe I should just stand here. And a little of this, I have to say, I came on board Habitat in the beginning of January, so I haven't been involved with this project through the extensive and very cooperative workings with the town and community preservation. And I also believe that there was quite a rigorous process with the neighborhood to make sure that our designs worked for them. Originally, we had proposed 5 parking spaces, and the neighbors requested decreasing that amount, and we changed our plans accordingly.
You read it in the notes.
I read that in the notes. I don't have personal knowledge of that, but that's what I read. And I have to say that just reading the notes, I thought, this is strange. More parking is always, I shouldn't say always better, oftentimes better. And when I visited the site, I understood that it's a small street and less parking can work in that situation.
Well, my concern is that if somebody there who lives there has a car, it's physically impossible for anyone to come and visit her or him because there's no place to park. You can't park on that street unless you're blocking in the neighbor. So it does remain a concern of mine. Speaking of neighbors, there was a neighbor who has a letter in the file talking about just how close their property line is here. I know that's more of a civil thing and not necessarily on us, but if you could just expound on conversations with that person.
And I have to say, I can speak from obviously only Habitat's perspective of how this conversation evolved. Our original understanding was that there was an interest in, because the abutters on both sides, sort of making the lot lines more parallel to the street, a more uniform presentation. And as we did some work on that, and then we were told, no, that wasn't so much an interest. What the neighbors were very interested in was the concern about being able to maintain the side of their home, and so they wanted an easement over some land, as you're facing the house on the left side. So we went to and of course, until the engineering is complete, we could not begin to prepare plans to come before you. So we were dedicating some time and also some money to this. We had our engineer draw a line that would represent, I think it was up to a 7.7-foot easement from their house, and the town informed us and that according to some regulation or whatever is that you have to do an even square footage swap with that kind of easement. You can't just move over lot lines. So we had drawn a plan that took a little triangle of their land in order to give them that maintenance easement, and sent that plan along, and also did give a time element for approval with this, and we were meeting that request for maintenance on their side of the house at that time, which is how the question was posed to us. That was turned down. We were asked to speak with their attorney, and then proposals were made to us that they would have that easement, but they would also have exclusive use of the triangle, which didn't seem right that our homeowner would be giving up land. And then there was another proposal that they would pay in order to have that easement, and then we didn't feel that we could sell a bit of land that the town had given for this purpose. And in conversation with their attorney, he surfaced a Massachusetts, I don't know if it's a statute or regulation or case law, that essentially says that you can walk on your neighbor's property. You're not considered to be trespassing if you need to go on that property in order to maintain. And so it became apparent to us it was kind of a non-issue. He had the right, if he needed to go on the future homeowner's land in order to do whatever kind of maintenance he might need to do routinely on his land. So we put it to rest and said, this has gone on, it's gone on longer than we said. We have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. We need to do our survey and our engineering to do that, and that's the point where we closed that discussion. And then a new discussion opened about buffering, so that was not actually the original question. The original question was over home maintenance, and then buffering came up, and I'd have to say that is still under discussion within Habitat, and I think we're very concerned about the comfort of the homeowner who will live here in privacy, and we understand the Zettlers' desire for privacy. We feel that's entirely reasonable, but we feel it should be something that we incorporate into the landscaping plan. We'll be happy probably to have some contribution. We don't oppose that. What we did oppose was giving an easement to the Zettlers and permanently giving up some right to the control of the property to the neighbor. We just felt that was not right, and we wanted to address it through landscaping and good neighborliness. So the discussion changed over time, and it took quite a while, and it did delay our coming before you. We felt we made good effort, and we did spend good money for engineering for nothing.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing to that, if I could. What the Zettlers were discussing with us was not an easement per se, it was a land swap. They were going to rejigger the boundary lines of the property. And it's not our land, it's the town's land, so it's an inappropriate discussion to have, and that's another reason why we didn't continue to engage in it.
Next, let's see, you're taking an undersized lot and proposing to make 2 even more undersized lots. Any thought to a different setup, possibly condo units?
Our experience with condos right now is that it's impossible to finance them. And we're not certain how these are going to be financed. To the extent they're financed with some kind of conventional affordable housing mechanism, condos just don't work anymore. As far as the lot lines, we responded to a proposal. It was either give us a 3-bedroom house or give us 3 + 1. We decided to try to get the maximum amount of units out of the project. So, and then
I believe the 10 preferenced. I think that was, if I'm correct, I apologize for interrupting, but I think that the approach with the 3-bedroom and the 1-bedroom was definitely in response to town preference. So we were trying to satisfy the needs of the town, and the town wanted to increase the subsidized housing inventory and provide as much community housing as they could with a lot that's serviced by infrastructure that's very conveniently located, that fits a lot of the sustainable development
But the answer to the
principles.
question about splitting the land was
sorry.
the financing. Okay.
yeah, it was mainly about financing. But what we do, we'd have a party wall agreement that would address the rights of the neighbors and how the party wall is treated. And I believe a sample or specimen party wall agreement was provided to Ms. Boudreau.
Thank you. That's all I have right now.
Tricia?
The only question I have, and Dennis asked it, but I wasn't clear on the answer, was your handicap visibility. If you're going to try and make this handicap visibility, you need to have access. And it's not real clear to me that you're showing that. And I might have missed part of your answer, but I didn't get clearly, if I'm in a wheelchair, how am I gaining access to either one of these units? It's not going to happen without some type of ramping.
Yes, but the ramp can be a portable ramp rather than a permanent structure.
Okay.
I guess that is the point. But otherwise, the size of the entry doors, size of the bathrooms are visitable for someone who's handicapped.
Okay, so everything interior is set for that purpose?
On the first floor.
On the first floor, well, that would make
Yes.
sense, you wouldn't want to spend the elevator money. Okay, so if in fact, beyond that, a need was there, it would be a portable ramp,
Yes.
which would hook to the front of the building or the rear of the building?
It's shown in the right-hand side of the 3-bedroom unit.
Right, okay.
In
so
the
that-
front.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you. That's all I have right now.
Just
Thank
for
you.
clarification, excuse me, is that plan that shows the ramp before the raising of the foundation? Is it not, there's a different ramp that needs to be designed for that, since I believe it's...
This is proposed.
This is the original,
The answer is,
Oh, yeah, we
So
don't
does that
have that.
take into consideration of the foundation being raised? Because you're grading 6 or 7 steps.
I'm told it does.
And that ramp goes up to those 6 or 7 steps?
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Jack Landers-Colley. Unfortunately, the submission shows the site plan without all the details of the sewer, the electric, the water, and the ramp. But this plan, which I brought along, shows the proposed elevation at 15, the raised elevation with the ramp, and we designed it according to that elevation, so it's functional.
So that ramp on the plan that they have in front of them is an accurate plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Jack, don't hang up. So, so with that height, is that going to meet ADA requirements
Yes.
for a ramp?
Yeah, I wasn't sure it was. That's why I designed it. Originally, Lidora and I spoke about it, and I had some uncertainty, so I designed it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Ken?
You to me?
Yep.
I noticed there's a proposed 10 by 11 shed. Is that correct in the back? What's the purpose of that?
Storage?
And there's one for both, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't provide the shed. It's there for permitting purposes, so if the family wants to have a shed,
Wants to put it.
they can have a shed, and that's where it would go, just for permitting purposes, so that
And there is no garage?
there is no garage, no.
And so, and the basement, as you, according to your earlier descriptions, is not a full basement, so the shed is perhaps therefore more important.
Might be. Yeah, the basement, I believe, is 6'6", so it's not terribly short, but it's not standard height.
Kevin Garnett is going to have trouble down there. To go back to the issue of the abutter and the request for some screening, and the one thing I notice is that the way you've configured the lot, it's actually 2 feet closer on the side where the abutter has an issue to the lot line than it is on the other side. And I'm just wondering if there's any possibility of jiggering it to work the other way.
What about this?
Let me see if I can give a direct answer. One of the pieces in terms of working with the neighborhood was intensity of use. It's not always just exact number of feet. So we had the 1-bedroom unit closest to the year-round neighbor, thinking that the 1-bedroom unit has a lighter use, 1 car as opposed to 2. We were trying to keep the lots of the same size. We also had the 1-bedroom unit closer to the street to, again, trying to be as considerate to our closest neighbor as possible. Did that get it?
Yeah,
Okay.
certainly explained your reasoning.
And we are, it's a benefit to all neighbors to have a little bit of screening. I mean, that's a positive thing, and a landscaping plan will come in time. It's just premature right now to address exactly what's going to happen.
I'm just wondering if there's some protection that can be incorporated into, short of an easement, maybe a no-build, strip or something, so that the abutters on that side feel confident that over time they're protected.
I can say we'd be amenable to that. Maybe something that needs to be negotiated a bit further. But our feeling was that this wasn't the appropriate time to do that. But we're not against it. As far as a condition goes, I don't know. But again, we are willing, and as we've demonstrated, we're willing to work with the neighbors.
Yeah, no, I think that's clear. So I guess a last question, is there, these are now under 5,000, at least one of them is under 5,000 square feet.
Yes.
These lots. Are you aware of any state minimum lot size requirements in terms of width or area that would be applicable under this 40B approach?
I am not. The only statute that I'm aware of that has a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size requirement is in Chapter 40A, I believe it's Section 6, which talks about whether a lot is eligible to be grandfathered. And in order to be eligible to be grandfathered, a lot must be 5,000 square feet.
But just to be clear,
Don't think
that's
it
under
applies
Chapter
to
40A.
this. That's 40A. I believe 40B would trump 40A. So you have the power to create a lot that is less than 5,000 feet, as far as I know.
And less than to begin with. Okay.
Scott?
I have some questions for Jack, if you don't mind. Hi, Jack. You guys considered fencing at all in this property?
It's been discussed at one
In what
time.
detail?
It was just talked about when the process of the easement versus the land transfer, but it didn't get any further than that.
And that was between you and Habitat, not you and the abutters?
I actually had the benefit of being at the site meeting with the neighbors to discuss many of those details with Don Dickinson. Lador took his position when he retired, and it was an extensive conversation as to what they could do. And we were the ones that actually precipitated the different concepts of how we could perhaps help them resolve some of their problems. Fencing was discussed, but it didn't seem to, I don't know why it didn't go anywhere, to be honest with you.
Well, if you agree that we were 45 feet from the back of the rear unit, the one that, you've got the pond back there, you've got the tower right back there, too. I think that a fence, some kind of fencing discussion would help. I mean, my other concern is on the front of the property, actually in the public way. You've got sewer connections, you've got two sewer connections, 2 water connections, and gas connections in a 15-foot right-of-way, 15-foot. Do you guys anticipate having to restore that section of road completely, or are you going to have 6 patches through that road?
It hasn't been brought up, but if I were asked, I'd say yes, I would put a new overlay in that section.
Okay. That's all I have for right now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jack.
Patty?
I'm okay.
David?
Just to talk about the sheds again, is that, those proposed sheds, was that included in the lot coverage for this parcel?
That's yes. Yes, I'm told it was.
All right, and the landscape plan, you said that's going to come sometime down the road?
Yes. It hasn't been done.
Why is that? It just seems, being that the neighbors wanted some sort of buffer, and Scott mentioned fencing, I would think it'd be a good time.
Lidara Zola again. The vegetated buffer idea just came up within, I think, the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's very recent. In general, Habitat, with our landscaping, because we do rely on volunteer efforts and volunteer materials, it is one of the elements that evolves and comes as the home is ready for landscaping. People who have landscaping available to donate at that time. So we want to maintain the flexibility to accept whatever shrubs and trees or plantings are donated to us. A vegetated buffer is a positive thing. The details of it are hard to figure out right now, and we didn't have enough time to work it all out with a neighbor.
And just one other thing regarding starting and completing the project, when do you foresee that?
I believe our plan was to construct the house in 2012.
So sometime this year.
No? Difference of opinion?
Hopefully.
And I would say, yeah, the issue of this vegetated buffer, I do want to say, did come in after we submitted our plans to you, so it is quite recent, so that's why that discussion hasn't concluded. It really depends somewhat on when we emerge from the Zoning Board of Appeals with an approval and the appeal period expires. It's at that point that we open up family selection, which is a 6-month process for us. The state requires that applications are open for 2 months, then there's credit review, and then there's interviews. That puts us very likely to doing, unless we get very quick approval, to doing site work and so forth in the fall and being ready to raise walls in the spring. If things go on an express lane, it's possible we could start construction this fall, but that's our delay period, to be realistic.
And just one last thing regarding the basements, both are just used for washer and dryer, the heating system, that sort of thing?
The basement's definitely for mechanicals, washer, dryer, and storage. The concept is, the homes do need some storage. People have fishing rods, kayaks, bikes, and better to give people a place to store those so that the homes have, look nice from outside. And, it's nice to have a basement.
Mr. Chairman, that's good for now.
All right, thanks. Warren, I'll go through you and we'll see where it goes. Just following on a couple of things that other members have brought up. David just brought up the sheds and the lot coverage. And I understand that you're looking for the permitting in case a family might want that, but there are no setbacks in terms of the sheds or the size of the sheds. And depending on setbacks and sizes, you may need to have an exception or a variance, a waiver from regulations. So we'll need to know the size and the setbacks of those sheds.
I see one is marked at 10 feet by 11 feet.
Okay. And the setback would be?
I don't know. It's not indicated.
When we showed the sheds, we got them to comply with zoning, so they're 10 feet.
Okay.
We can depict that, though, if it makes you feel comfortable.
We'll have it in the record, and
Yeah.
certainly when you do finalize plans, if it's approved with that, we just need to have it shown there. Okay? Following up on Mr. Foreman's question regarding 40A Section 6, as you said, Warren, you indicated that it was your belief that 40B trumps 40A. Can you show us something regarding that? Is there something that I missed in 40B that says it overrides 40A? Because I'm not aware of that.
Right. We had a case in Bourne involving the doctrine of merger. 2 lots in common ownership at the time the zoning was increased. And the town of Bourne denied a 40B permit. We appealed to the Housing Appeals Committee in Boston, and the case settled, but it was the statement of Werner Lowy, the chair of Housing Appeals Committee, that 40B trumps 40A. Forget about the doctrine of merger.
Could you provide a copy of that portion of that decision?
It was a decision on a stipulation, so not really. I mean, that's how we were finally allowed to build.
So that was Werner Lowy's opinion at the time that ultimately settled, but it's not really a hack decision?
No. I wouldn't say it has precedential value.
Yeah. Anything that there is out there that could be beneficial to this board in terms of that?
I'm not aware of anything that says exactly that 40B trumps 40A. I give that as an example because it's a very clear one where merger is something under 40A and was found not to be an issue whatsoever at the level of the Housing Appeals Committee.
except that really wasn't a decision by the Housing Appeals Committee, it was a settlement between the parties.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide you with a copy of the decision on stipulation.
No, because that probably won't give us any value, so we're looking for something, okay? Going down the same route, however, if you look at 40A Section 6, and it does have 5,000 square foot, one might argue a 5,000 square foot minimum, and also a 50-foot width. Given the dimensions of the entire parcel that's being sold to Habitat for Humanity, why can't you meet those requirements?
Because, first of all, the lot is not 100 feet wide.
98.
Yeah, we thought it was. I mean, I think there's some indication in some map that it is. It is not 100 feet wide, so
Okay.
it can't, on average, be 50 feet wide if you cut it in half.
The square footage?
The square footage, we could actually move the structure over to the north a bit and end up with a 5,000, each lot being 5,000 feet. We'd have, Jack says we'd need to move it about a foot, and we could accomplish that.
Because, I mean, I'm not sure we can waive a state statute. And again, since you haven't given us anything that would argue that, or provide us documentation that 40B trumps 40A, or that we do have that power, that might be an interesting approach, and this board does reserve the right to itself to decide what's de minimis. So 2 feet on this project in terms of width might be considered by the board to be de minimis, and it might resolve some issues without having to get into the legal concerns over 40B, 40A, and any minimum requirements in 40A, Section 6. So,
Which I believe apply to grandfathering. It's not the situation before us.
well, again, it's going to be the applicant's burden to demonstrate that to this board because the concern's been raised. Okay. Another question I have is regarding the lot coverage by buildings and parking, paved, etc. In tab 12, you provided that for the entire parcel that's under consideration, but you haven't provided it for the subdivided lots. Is that something that could be done?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. The lottery plan, is there any preference for Falmouth residents?
Yes, I'm sorry I left that out in my presentation. Up to 70, in effect, it will be one local preference. One of the units, probably the 3-bedroom unit, will be subject to a local preference. To people who live in town, work in town, have family in town, or work for the town.
Okay. And you said probably, do you know yet, or will you be able to tell us at some later point?
It's my technical issue. There's the DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development. Their new standard is you do need to demonstrate that there is a need for housing for local people. We've never had a problem with that to date. We use town affordable housing plans, et cetera, to accomplish that. So we do have to demonstrate need for it to DHCD, and then we would be, if successful, which we always have been, we would be able to offer preference for one unit according to their definition. And with forgiveness, Warren, they revised that about 2 years ago, and it's lives in the town, is employed in the town, whether it's a local business or a municipal or school, or attends school in the town. They no longer allow us to give preference because you have family in town, so I don't want to have you under a misunderstanding.
And if I can, which unit are you going to be requesting the preference for?
I would say the 3-bedroom. It usually has the greater demand, and we feel that that would be the town's desire, and that is why we would do that.
Great, thank you. Next question relates to the letter of support from the Board of Selectmen. In that letter, it indicated, and I think you all have as well, that town officials held meetings with Habitat and interested neighbors to modify the project design and to address some of the neighbors' concerns. Can you summarize what the concerns were and how they have been addressed?
I cannot. I wasn't present. Don Dickinson was pretty much in charge at that
I'm
point.
sure there must have been some notes or thoughts, or...
I have no idea.
Because I know this came before town meeting, and there were a number of concerns that had been raised, and it was, I think, based on the fact that there were going to be these meetings and the concerns addressed, that the vote passed, as you said, by two-thirds vote.
I think I can take some of this, and maybe Jack, you were at some of these meetings, you can help as well. I believe parking was one of the concerns that we addressed. Originally, the house design had, if you notice, they're offset. Originally, the house design had the front all equal, and the neighbors felt that that was a bit of massing, I think, for the front, and suggested the offset, which we complied with. I believe there were some questions about saving some, of the plantings that had been there, and I believe that those were the big issues, but I may be leaving something out.
Okay, thank you. The next issue I wanted to follow up on that Dennis Murphy had indicated was about the parking. That's my understanding that Habitat has stated that there will not be any on-street parking. That came up at our technical review.
I don't know how we can, we're trying to provide adequate parking spaces. I don't, it's impractical to park on the street as it is.
I'm just trying to clarify. Are you saying that you're not relying on on-street parking for this project?
No, we believe the parking spaces are adequate,
Okay.
although less than code requires.
Right. Is there a financial problem or other problem with adding an additional parking space for visitors that Mr. Murphy had mentioned?
Good point.
I can. We could provide additional parking. I guess the problem is when you try to take all the components of a project like this, that is the height of the building, the location of the building, the fact that it fronts the same as the others, and you don't want to create any contrast to what's there now, this really meets that goal. If we show an additional parking space, I think would be the exception to the rule, first of all, on the whole road. And even if we were to provide it, I would suggest maybe in a hardened surface like a gravel or something that's less, you see less of, and implicitly they're not going to use as often.
Is possibility reinforced turf?
Yeah. Well, we're already using recycled concrete aggregate, and yeah, it's possible, but I'll say in the same breath, though, that the more parking we put in, the less planting we'll have too in the front yard. So it's a trade-off. A decision has to be made by you in that regards.
Thank you. What are the plans for trash?
I believe that would be by the town.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you were relying on that, because I think something also came up at the technical meeting, that the technical review, that there were dumpsters already on the street, and I wasn't clear as to what the plans were. So you're relying on the municipal pickup?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. The portable ramp that you mentioned in terms of the visitability, given the portable nature of it, if I understand correctly, and perhaps I need to have a better understanding, is that something that's going to be stored somewhere for when and if somebody comes? And if so, where will it be stored?
I think it's the kind of a thing that if there is a need for it, the homeowner would purchase it, and it would then be there.
Then it's not really visitable, is it?
It's not visitable. It's in the basement.
In the basement.
Okay.
Could be stored in the basement.
So it's something that can be taken off and wheeled or something else obviously it'll have to meet building code, so the idea is that it would be stored in the basement. Okay, thank you.
And it's also, we put it on the plan to make sure it was possible, is my understanding. The hope is there may be an easier method off the back, because the back, the grade is going to be a little higher. It's not, we're not building this ramp then and there. We are going to strive to make sure, if it's at all practical, that we can have visitability.
Okay. I just want to make sure that by the time you want us to act on this application, we know what you're asking for. Because to say on one hand that we will have visitable units, and then to say we're not sure if it's practical is not a clear application to me.
I agree with you, and we will make this clear. I think an intention changed when we realized that we had to elevate this building, and
That's the
so
concern, I think.
I know what, and I was a little taken by surprise tonight, which is not a good way to be. I know the concern of our director of construction was to look at this building and see if it needed to be ramped in the future. Would that be able to be done? And so that was an exercise that we went through. So I cannot say for sure tonight that we would do the portable ramp thing, because in the instance where we have been able to do that, what we've built is one-step entries, and the homeowner does have quite a simple ramp that they can bring if they do have a visitor. So just the higher elevation that we've had to go to because of the water table, I think there was not a complete circle of communication, and I apologize for this. We should have been on one page to be here tonight, but
So it's obviously something we'll look
yes,
forward to.
that's the reason for the confusion, because
Thank you very much. And I think the last question, Warren, is regarding the engineering referral. Plans to address the requirement for modification of the plans because of, what was that point?
The proposed interior lot line divides the parcel into two lots, and it has an incorrect bearing label, north 009. Okay.
And obviously, if you're going to be considering moving that lot line, it may have a bearing on it anyway. All right, let me just check and see. Do you have a date for conservation yet, or when you're planning to submit that request for notice of intent?
We really learned of the requirement yesterday, and
Okay.
we're in the process of engaging a scientist now. So the first step is doing the staking of the wetlands and preparing a certified plot plan, and then seeing what that means.
Okay, sounds good. I know there are a couple of follow-up questions. Tricia?
Yeah, this is for Jack, if you would, please. Jack, what are you doing on your road runoff and water? Because on sheet A2, the gutter is just hanging in the open air, and it's not going into any dry wells. So I kind of have a concern that... All right. Especially if you're going to go to conservation, they're going to question that right away.
I know they'll question that. And just sort of as an added sidebar, the site plan we have is probably 95% sufficient for the Conservation Commission. I'll have to add a few details to it. As for the road runoff, we're not going to do anything because that's the same. As for the house drainage, we'll put in dry wells, is what we'll do. We'll just
Okay.
modify the plan to show
Because
dry
that water's
wells.
going to go into the road otherwise, eventually,
Right.
especially where it's so close to the street. And the other thing, everybody's looking at the plan saying you need to move the house to split the lot equally. Why would you, this is, not that I'm trying to redesign your plan, but why don't you just jockey the rear of the lot line a little bit? And
Well, that's a good question. I asked Don Dickinson the same thing, and he says, well, a lot of people can't visualize an angle in their lot line. When they look out the back of their house, they want to know the line's parallel. And so it makes sense, and that's, I guess, that reasoning, so.
I think it would be easier to clarify.
We'll
just
get
leave
it so it's 5,000
All
or
right.
more, though.
Thank you. No.
Jack, before you sit down, if you don't mind. you anticipate any issues with parking for construction down there? On my site visit, I had to turn around in someone's driveway to even just get my pickup out of there. Once you get excavators and dump trucks and the whole thing down there, where are they going to stage all that? Have you guys made any reservations for that? Knowing that the neighbors, sometimes you get to park on the neighbor's property, but if the neighbors aren't in...
It's a good question. Quite frankly, they can, this whole area where they could stage their construction, and they can also stage it back here. Right now, this is all grass right in this area. It overlooks Town Hall. Town Hall's right here.
Right.
So, as you know better than anyone else,
That's 45
once you get
feet from the edge of the
and cleaned
foundation.
up, it's a lot easier to work. It's that first stage, and this is all coarse sands and gravels in this area, so we should be in pretty good shape in that sense.
And I'm just following up on my original question about fencing. I'm not sure that I even got an answer.
I think they have to try to resolve it with their neighbor. If you're talking about fencing in the back,
I'm talking about showing the town's property some privacy, and the two neighbors who are clearly not in favor of this, I would like to see some kind of fig leaf, you know what I mean, going forward.
We'll leave it at questions right now, and then we'll have a little bit of a
I'm
discussion.
asking for the question about the fencing. Would you enter into some dialogue with the butters if it made a difference?
answered by him.
Thank you.
We certainly will, although the abutters indicated a preference for a buffer rather than fencing.
Green fence.
And I have one more for you, sir.
Please.
Always, never rented, always,
Oh, never rented, no.
Owner occupied.
always owned.
Oh, absolutely.
So
No
if,
rooms to rent either.
God forbid, there was someone lost that house, there wouldn't be a rental in between sales of that property?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
Just a small one.
David.
It's town sewage. There won't be any garbage disposals, will there?
No, we don't do
We
them.
want to put it in a condition, but we won't go to it.
Just remember we're on TV.
Yes, we don't include disposers or dishwashers.
Dennis?
Thanks. Warren, just one more. Can you just go over the thought process on, I know the neighboring houses are close to the street, but is that the only reason you put this one so close to the street?
My understanding is it was intended to carry the line of the existing structures so that it would blend in with the neighborhood.
Originally, we had proposed it, and it was further back, and we moved it closer to the street at the request of the neighbors as part of that discussion to really make a home that was in keeping with the neighborhood.
And then move the three-bedroom unit back to handle the architectural issue of massing.
Yes, thank you.
Sari? Before I turn to the public, there's just one thing I forgot to mention, just so that we have it on the record, that we did get a letter from the planning board, signed by the chairman of the planning board. I just want to acknowledge publicly that Mr. Herbst is also a member of the CPC that voted funding for this project. So I just wanted to make sure that was fully disclosed. All right. All right. With that, we're going to turn to comments from the public. And what I'm going to ask for is those who are opposed to the project, those who are in favor of the project, or those that might have any questions or general comments. Okay? So is there anyone in the public that is opposed to this application? Okay. Anyone in favor of this? Are you opposed to the application, sir?
Are you taking account at this point?
No, I'm asking for people to be recognized by the chair to come up. If you're opposed, in favor, or questions and comments.
Do I need to commit to one of those three?
You do. So I'm starting out with those that are opposed.
Well,
I'll come back later. You can,
Okay.
anyone in favor? All right. Yeah, you're in favor, sir? Yes. Then come on up, please, identify yourself and...
Does this mean I can't have a question?
No?
All right.
My name is Stephen Malkus. I live at 50 Glenwood, which is right across the street from the proposed Habitat for Humanity. I'm very psyched. This is the greatest thing that's happened in Glenwood since my neighbor Dan moved in. This is terrific. We're very excited about it, at least I am. But I can understand what the Zettlers issue is, and I just, in passing, I want to give a little history on that. We go way back to when this property was first being considered for a parking lot. And so we've had a lot of issues with the town about this, and I think Eric and Linda fell off the tracks when, I guess Marlene of the planning indicated that a proposal for, request for proposals was going to go out for a single-family unit with an accessory. And we were told that we would be informed if that wasn't working out. And the street was never informed until we then found out this present plan. And I think that since then, a number of people got a little antsy because they realized that the town had expressed a preference, which was said even today, for having 2 units. So there was a little funniness going on. I still understand Eric's problem with this, and again, it must be the town that's responsible for not being able to do the land swap, which he originally was requesting. There were complications. The front line has to stay the same, and I don't see how much they would have, I remember you were there, there's not much to be bought by just shifting the back line, I guess, which is one of the things that was discussed at that time. So anyway, that's where that stands, and we have sympathy for them. They're our neighbors, but this is going to go on. The only question I have, as I said, I'm psyched. I think this is great. I'm all for it. I want to participate in it. However, I did notice in the plans that we requested, in these meetings, I've been to every single one of them, that were available and announced to us. From the start, I'm not Julia Butterfly. I'm not going to go and build a treehouse in those trees. But we were told that the large cedars were going to be kept. And now, I don't know if that's possible. Somebody technical would have to say, we're going to try to keep them, but if they start putting heavy equipment in, digging up foundations, the roots might go and they might die. But I do notice that in this plan, it doesn't say original cedars, it says cedar bushes. So I'm a little disturbed by that, because these are 100-year-old trees, white cedars. They're over 50 feet tall. They're beautiful. I've been looking at them for 12 years now, and I'm hoping you can keep them.
We'll ask for clarification on that. For
Yeah.
Okay.
But otherwise, thumbs up. I'm in there. I'm with you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in favor? If not, we'll get to question. Oh, sorry, you wanted to come up and speak in favor? Come on up. Thank you.
Fred Dodge, Walker Street, is one of the neighbors that has followed the Glenwood Lot 10 controversy over the years. I think my first impression, when your questions are all resolved, is my comment is that I want to commend the Habitat for Humanity for their care and the architects for their design to make the building look in conformity with the rest of the historic Glenwood Avenue. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Dodge. Anyone else in favor? Okay, questions and comments and...
My name's Dan Soline. I live at 61 Walker Street. My property also has the address of 58 Glenwood Avenue as it goes from, spans the block. And I own the rather dilapidated old house across the street from this property, which we hope to renovate soon. I guess the reason I've been sort of confused here is that, honestly, my opinions are a little confused, and that's nobody's fault but my own, I guess. I've lived in the lot for 20 years. I have observed, I guess, the stabilization of the neighborhood over the years. When I moved in, it was a troubled, street, and home ownership has been a stabilizing influence, on the street. Started with Dan Rapetta and his wife Marisa, who previously owned Steve's house, and then I followed, and then the Zetlers moved in, and the Zetlers bought the property flanking both sides of, on the north side of this lot number 10, I guess we know it as. And so, our little cluster of resident owners, has been, I think, a really good effect on a neighborhood that, when I moved in, was very troubled by alcohol, consumption open on the street, drug sales, lots of things. And I know the police records would attest to this history. But it's a fairly quiet, neighborhood now, although it's dense. There are 18 dwelling units that front on Glenwood Avenue. Okay, some of the units or buildings down the street have as many as 5 or 6 units that have been carved up, in these old houses. And those, of course, are not home ownership, and they're rental, and generally they're quiet, and sometimes they aren't. And we've just learned to sort of enjoy the urban, nature of the place, and all the things that the people who live in this house will enjoy about living downtown and having all of the access to services and such that they'll have. We've enjoyed the use of the lot as a vacant lot. I mean, given the density of the neighborhood, it's probably close to 15 units per acre, down on that street. And so it's been nice to have a vacant lot there, quite honestly. And it's been great to be able to walk through it over to the open space behind Town Hall. But, we understand that, the processes have been at work here for a long time. As Steve said, we fended off, parking lot uses over the years, which is a real struggle. And we really thank the town meeting for, really coming to our support on that matter more than once, because we were literally fighting City Hall in that process. And that's a very uncomfortable situation to be in. So we have urged the development of the property for housing, and town meeting came to our support in that, and we appreciate that. It's got a lot going for it. The sewer, the services nearby, the very developable lot being flat and such. And I think Habitat is about as good an organization, to lead this process as there could be. So in a lot of ways, it makes sense. My concerns are related to the street and the size of the lot. The street is about 12 or 13 feet wide. Okay, as I said, there are 18 dwelling units, along the street, not including these additional 2. These will be 19 and 20 now. I know I'm a landscape architect, professional site planner. You can't build houses on 12-foot wide streets. It's not allowed. I don't think that in most cases you could even build houses within a development on a 12-foot wide street, especially if that street was two-way. It wouldn't be allowed by the planning board, and wouldn't be allowed by you. But such as it is, that's what history provided us, in this case, and so we deal with it. But the way you deal with it is you have to hope that nobody's trying to come while you're going. Okay, you need to pull onto somebody's driveway to let somebody go by. If a guest comes, they have to park on Chancery Lane, on the parking, by the taxi stand, or over here at Town Hall, because there is no parking on the street. That would be dysfunctional. When the snow flies, and if it's a heavy snowfall, no offense to the DPW, but Glenwood Avenue is an afterthought, when it comes to plowing. And when you shove the snow aside, the 12-foot wide street is 7. Okay, so if I'm confused about my feelings here, it's not that I'm not a supporter of housing or people who have needs or opposed to Habitat. is I have practical concerns about how this is really going to work. Given, you might ask, well, gee, if there's 18 houses on the street already, what's another 2? Okay. Well, the fact of the matter is that the reason it works now is that the people who live close to Chancery Lane, they don't come down the street. They park in Chancery Lane. Okay. And then the northern half of the street is essentially, I'm guessing, special needs housing, for the most part, and they don't own cars. Okay, so those of us that own cars probably represent maybe less than half of the street. Okay, and I don't come down the street because I live on Walker Street. So I have some concerns about what 2 cars, 3 cars. That seems kind of silly. I mean, who would do a traffic study for 3 cars? But I mean, this is a situation where it would almost make sense to do a traffic study to see. I mean, do 3 cars create an issue here? I mean, it's a funny thing. It's a small-scale impact in some ways, but where there's like this little bitty neighborhood that with underscaled streets that small changes, make a big difference, in. And, so I guess I'm hoping that as you discuss, this project, that you really consider, the physical context of this project. The emergency access, I find it almost unfathomable that the fire department would look at this situation and have no comment. I mean, come on. I mean, it's not a condition that you could create under the bylaws, under the zoning, rules and regulations for subdivisions or for, and there's a reason for that. There are health, safety, and welfare reasons why you can't have 12-foot wide streets with 2-way traffic. That just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, there at least ought to be some questions or some discussion raised by the fire department or any of our other emergency providers here. I mean, if somebody, when I bring projects before planning board, there's always sort of the mythical, if there's a tree or a car stalled in the road, what do you do? How does a fire? Well, I mean, this is a literal situation where if a car is stuck in the road, you couldn't get past, to rescue somebody or to stop a fire. So I guess beyond that, I have some questions, and they are the maintenance of these units. Okay, we've got essentially one building owned by 2 people, or two different families. Are there covenants or something that guide the maintenance so that one doesn't paint it pink and one green, or when there's a roof to repair, they know who repairs what roof? And I mean, I'd like to know if we can anticipate that what we see here is going to remain a cohesive, piece of architecture long term, and how that responsibility shakes out. I presume it's too small. They're not condominiums, so there's no condominium fee. So I find that a little bit uneasy, not knowing, how these 2 people are going. What if they don't get along? Which, you live in a house next to somebody, that's not such a rare thing. So I don't know how that gets sorted out. Trash, I really wish that the Board of Appeals, if somebody would come to a rescue on the trash matter, because I bet you don't have 3 dumpsters along your street that you'll pass on the way home. I mean, why do we have 3 dumpsters that are open to view without any screening on the lots along Walker Street or along Glenwood Avenue? But that's the way it's been historically, and we can't get that changed. And then the Zettler issue. I understand. I mean, I think there's been some good feelings or good intentions, I guess, to work this out. But I think it needs to be worked out somehow because, I mean, this gentleman raised the question about fencing. Well, I mean, I think that there's only about a foot of distance between this corner of the Zeller house and the lot line. If there was a fence there, it would be an impossibility to reside their house or whatever. And so I think there needs to be some understanding of some sort. And it was comforting to hear that there may be state law that applies that enables someone to go on another person's property. I mean, this makes sense to me because in Boston, where you have lots of row houses and those kinds of things, triple deckers and all, you have to just do that. But so there probably is a law that enables that, and so that's good. But as long as there's not structures put in the way that would impede that, like a 6-foot-high board fence that's a foot from your house. I guess so. I mean, the truth be told, I love Habitat. I'm all for affordable housing. This was once a house lot. It's fine that it's another house. Truth be told, I wish it was a single-family house and not a duplex, because a single-family house would eliminate virtually all the issues that we're talking about. The Zellers wouldn't have concerns. There wouldn't be parking issues. There'd be less traffic on the street. We wouldn't be concerned about who's going to maintain which part of the house. I guess I love you guys, but I wish it was a single-family house, and I think all the issues would go away.
We're going to try to get some answers to that, but I'll give you one answer, Dan, right away. In terms of the trash dumpsters, this board has nothing to do with it. Zoning commissioner, building commissioner, you file a complaint with them and they can look into it, okay?
Can I ask Dan one question?
Yeah, please, Dan. We've got a question here for you.
Sure.
So you alluded to the fact that the street's very narrow, and one of the issues that was brought up was, could the house be pushed back maybe a little bit, creating maybe some more room for parking, which is something Dennis feels strongly about. You're in this business, and I'm just wondering if you have a constructive recommendation in terms of improving that situation.
I mean, it's, I look at the issue a little bit differently. I fought off a 50-car parking lot, more than once, down there because the more spaces at the end of the street, the more traffic, right? So if there are fewer, spaces at the house, maybe there'll be less. Maybe the people who live there will work something else out and tell their friend, hey, park on Chancery Lane, walk down the street. That's what a lot of people do that live there. Park at Town Hall, come through the backyard, or come down. I mean, from now on, I guess, for me to get to the park behind Town Hall for the dog to run or whatever, I'll have to go around, the block and go through, because I can't go through this lot anymore. So I really wish that you would keep the spaces as they are, and and expect for the residents to just work it out, because the more spaces, there will be more cars, and then there's more traffic and congestion.
And the same in terms of the house setback and so forth.
I'm one who's favored, the consistency of setback. Is because if you look down the street, they all line up like they've been, aligned with a string. And yeah, it's the neighborhood we live in and we like. So I hope I like what we're asking for. I think the house is a handsome house. Again, I think it's. I wish there was only one handsome house rather than two handsome houses. But whatever they decide, if you need a landscape architect to volunteer, this is not a marketing. It's not www. I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to design it. We're happy to, pitch in on purchasing. So, I'd really love to do it with a single-family house.
All right, we're going to see if we can get a couple of answers. And the questions that I came down the list were regarding the cedar trees, the maintenance of the buildings, whether or not there's a covenant or not. And I'm going to change Dan's comment into more of a question. On the single-family house, if you went to just one rather than two units, does it become unaffordable, or what's the impact on it? So 3 questions that I see.
I'll leave the cedar to someone else. On the question of 1 or 2 homes, no, it was never on a couple of issues, it was never an uneconomical project. The town, actually, in the RFPs, there was a 1-house proposal and a 2-house proposal, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think we even gave them a choice in our proposals. We gave them a 1 and a 2, and they awarded the 2 and made it clear that they wanted to. So we felt we were left with an unresolved discussion. We didn't feel that that was a change we could make in a discussion with neighbors. We felt that 2 houses were awarded, and so that was our responsibility to go forward with. But it never had to, it always had to do with what the town accepted, not with the economics of the project. And similarly with driveways and so forth, economics did not play into it. It had to do with this discussion. In terms of, we hadn't really discussed permanent issues relative to paint colors, although that there could be a range or something that was set out from the start. That would not be a big issue. But in terms of long-term maintenance, this board previously approved Sam Turner Road, where we have 2, there's actually 4 single-family homes, but they're done in the similar configuration of these attached single-family homes. And what we have is a 2-wall party agreement where we do escrow funds, and we consider that essentially the roof and the foundation system are shared systems, and from the beginning, the homeowners escrow a certain amount of money towards those systems, so that when we get to 20 years and the roof needs replacement, we don't have to worry about whether one has the money and one doesn't. And there is even language in there, and Warren, do you remember if it requires arbitration or mediation? But it's quite specific. It's one of those systems or the other for a resolution if they cannot meet a resolution. Were those, I think, 2 of the questions? And then on the cedar trees, I'll leave that elsewhere. I did have one other, but
Are you sure? Go ahead.
I would only say on the issue of fencing, we don't feel that our homes are nuisances, and we never object if a neighbor doesn't want to look at it and they wish to put up fencing on the line, that's okay. For us to put up fencing and allow for maintenance of the side house means giving up, 7 feet of a homeowner's lot permanently. So for that reason, we do prefer a green buffer zone, and then if the Zettlers want to further fence, but we're happy trying to get some kind of green buffering for both. But that's our reasoning behind fencing.
I think there's a question for you.
I was just curious if you thought that there was any concern that from the back of that rearmost house, you're not that far from a working parking lot, and if you've got a 3-bedroom unit,
Yeah.
you've got a 3-bedroom unit that'll probably have children in it.
Okay.
They're going to play in the backyard.
Okay.
That was, and my question about the fence wasn't as much about the sideline as it was about protecting the family, the children, are there any pets, whatever, from getting into that parking lot or into the pond?
Yeah.
That's where I was coming with that.
That's a real good point, Scott, and it's going to be addressed. We hadn't thought about it. I was thinking more of a noise or just a buffer from the physical aspects of town hall.
But the people are coming in and out of that parking lot all day long.
Yeah, I understand, although they don't drive too fast down there. As for the cedar trees, we're going to locate those we think are specimen, and we'll show them on the plan. And then, by doing that, we'll also make recommendations, maybe move this shed over here, maybe try to just mitigate any alteration of the landscape from some point back, try to preserve those specimen plants. The other item I wanted to comment, and Dan was right, this is a tough road to go up and down. But I think the board has to also remember it's a dead end right here. The only people on this road are the ones that are going to park in their driveway. And of those, probably half are at the top half of the road. So the amount of conflict, I can't imagine it's going to be much. In terms of ambulatory care and or fire prevention, I think I can just refresh the board's memory. I think The fire chief said that 96% of our calls are ambulatory, they're not fire. So we just don't see those incidents of a fire truck having to extinguish a fire here.
Dan, did you have an additional comment?
Well, I just wanted to respond to Jack's comment. It is dead-end street, okay? But there's no turning situation at the end of that dead-end street. It's not like there's a cul-de-sac or even a boot. It's you pull onto the settler's lot, property to turn around, or you pull onto my property or somebody else.
I probably did both.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I wanted to say that, the trees that we're concerned about, these are pines back here, white pines that, they're beautiful, but, and we're saving if we can. These are the trees that we're most concerned about, is the cedars right up here on the street that, we're all very fond of because they're just sentinels in the landscape. And, for my own selfish reasons, my, kitchen window's here, and they sit between me and the tower, over here. And so they kind of, buffer that tower from our view, and we would greatly appreciate their preservation. And, again, as somebody who builds a lot of big houses and landscape work, I don't think there's any reason why they can't be saved. I just wanted to say one more thing about, the permitting, background here, or what led to a two-unit house versus single. I'm not sure, but I don't think that the town meeting said that this needed to be.
I think we're going to follow up and try to get some of that information in so we can be sure of it ourselves.
Okay. And then I think that certainly it has been the preference of the town manager and our board of selectmen as we've been at meetings, to where this has been discussed, to have more than one unit. But I just want to say, you are the first group that has given this concept technical review. That was all sort of wishful thinking and broad brush thinking. Now we're looking at the nuts and bolts, of this, and I really appreciate all the questions you're asking and things, but this is the one and the last time that anybody's ever going to look at this and ask themselves, what's suitable, for this lot in this situation. And if you decide that it's suitable for a two-family house, we'll all accept that. But I want you to please consider, all of the issues that relate to the scale of the development.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other comments, board members? All right, board members want to have a little discussion, share your concerns, thoughts at this point so that we can, it appears that we're going to have to continue this to another time and we'll have to look at the date, but we might as well share with the applicant any of our thoughts so that you'll hear them and maybe address them. Do you want to start, Dennis?
Yeah, my one concern is something we keep talking about is the parking right now. I just don't think it's adequate for the one bedroom.
Ken?
Well, I think that Celine brings up some interesting points about trying to shoehorn. I know it's 40B, but it's going to be affordable, whether it's 1 unit or 2 units. We're not trying to put market rates on it, and what might really work on this site. He has some good points, I thought.
Patty?
I think I need to go back. I've been walked all around the property and driven in Glenwood, but I walked today.
Yeah.
I think I'll have to, we can't solve all the problems, but I think we can look at it as far as, can we really have 2 there that are going to work all right?
Tricia?
I agree with Dennis on the parking on the 1 unit. There's no way 1 parking spot works for that, because you can't have a guest unless you tell them to go to public parking, which the reverse side is, there's more than ample public parking just steps away, And I think that's doable. We had something similar last week that didn't have enough parking, and we said, gee, there's no public parking, we could utilize it. This is a perfect example of utilizing public parking, which is right around the corner for the whole project. So the parking, I'm concerned there's only one spot, but the flip side is the fact there's plenty of public parking. I'm not concerned with the traffic, because if you look at the town GIS, and I did, when I was over there the other day, I made note of it, there's really only about 9 driveways that are actually fronting on Glenwood. So for that purpose, the people that are going there are going to those properties. What else? I'm not concerned so much with a fence in the back, because my desk actually overlooks the back parking lot of Town Hall and this backyard here. And it's amazing the people that walk from that direction over here to utilize the park every single day. And I would hate to see that stopped for the owners here, or if the owners allowed the neighbors to continue that foot traffic through there. So I don't have a problem with that. I would just like to see some drainage there so that there's not a drainage problem onto the road. I think that's all I have right now.
Scott?
No, thank you. I think I've voiced my concerns.
David?
I agree with the parking also. I think that one-bedroom unit needs an additional spot. I understand it'll bring another vehicle down that road, but I got to believe he's going to have a visitor there at some point. Also, with the landscape plan, Dan brought up a good point, preserving those cedars. You know, the neighbor offered some buffering. It'd be nice to see that, at least before maybe a building permit's issued type thing.
Sorry. Okay. Just a couple of things, and I think sort of a follow-up as well. I think it might be really valuable for this board to see the minutes of the town meeting on this matter. If there's an RFP that you had, it's probably easier for you to get us a copy of that than somebody else. I think we need to become more knowledgeable about that. As you know the board's going to be discussing that, so you might want to think about, and I know you mentioned that it wasn't necessarily a financial matter, but if the board chose 1 unit versus 2 units, you may have to go back and reapply to DHCD, et cetera. So you may want to consider that and comment on that to the board the next time we get together, because that may set you back, it may cost you more money, a variety of things just to consider, okay? And I think depending on what happens with that, 1 unit versus 2 units might resolve some of the parking issues, et cetera. I think that there were good comments made in terms of if you build more parking, they will come. But at the same time, and I am not a landscape architect, I have no ability to design projects. I have a good idea of reviewing them, but I'm not good at designing them. But in looking at the 1-bedroom unit, the concept I keep thinking of is the staged parking. 1 parking space in front of the other. And if it were done on reinforced turf, it wouldn't look that way. And you could actually then, if somebody had a guest coming over, the owner could pull their car to the south side of that building on the reinforced turf and leave the space available for somebody else. I'm not a design person, but a thought, if that becomes a stumbling point for this board in terms of needing to have some kind of parking, that may be a way of solving. I don't know. Just a thought. We've heard the cedar trees, the agreement I know on Sam Turner. Do we have a copy of that draft agreement on the shared wall? Is that in our file? I don't think so. I think
We never saw it, Sam Turner.
Yeah. So it perhaps.
Pardon me?
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry. I thought we emailed a copy of the Sam Turner Road party wall agreement.
No, I didn't
No?
have it.
So if that's what you're intending to use, that might be helpful for the board. In terms of some of the follow-up items, and I may not remember them all, so I'm relying on you as well. We talked about the portable ramp, the whole ramp issue. We talked about the application being corrected, the percentage of lot coverage on each of the subdivided lots. the issue of whether or not you want to look at modifying the subdivision so that we have 5,000 square feet, or providing us some legal documentation that we could rely upon. And if you go the route of modifying it, you may want to make a request of, for the, considering de minimis, the frontage piece. I think it's a 2-foot matter. And again, there may have been other things that may not come right to me at the moment, but there are certainly things that we've shared with you. So I think you got a feeling for the board where we're at. Anything that you want to clarify before you leave and think about this and come back to us?
Okay.
Please, because we want to make sure you walk away clear as to what our thoughts are. And
Sure, and the 1 versus 2, what I meant was that it would not have been, and it, in theory, it's not an uneconomical project to do as a one-house project. It's not that we need a certain density. I did not mean to say that it would not cost time, and it would not have been a waste of a certain amount of money at this point, so we can look at regulatory, the RFP, and you'll be looking at those. But how do we proceed at this point? Am I hearing that there's a possibility that you may wish to ask us to do one house, and then how far do we go with design at this point?
I certainly got the impression from the board, and the board can correct me if I'm wrong, that that is something that they want to entertain.
That they may entertain that.
No.
I think it was just the explanation of how you got to the 2.
Well, that's what Trish says.
I got the impression, at least from Ken and Patty, that the idea of having 1 3-bedroom unit may be preferable.
I thought the reason for them getting the RFP and the town meeting thing was to verify that there's nothing there.
Well, my thinking is that if the town turned around and said, we want more than 1 unit.
It's up to the board. I misunderstood exactly. So.
And if the RFP went out saying preference is more than 1 unit, I just want to clarify that, because this is a LIP application.
I understand.
We already have the Board of Selectmen that's approved.
We also need to clarify that they may lose some of their CPA funding if they go from 2 units to 1, so there's more than just...
What I'm saying is that you need to think about, we need to know what the town really asked for.
You need to wait.
You need to consider the way you want to go and why you want to go that in light of the information that we will be reviewing. So if you still prefer the 2 units, and here are the reasons why and what it does to you, be prepared to share that with us.
Let me clarify if I can. The RFP was for either 1 single-family house or 2.
Okay.
Habitat proposed both.
Right.
And the town awarded for the 2-unit development.
Can you just, maybe, when we see the RFP, it'll be valuable. Who sent out the RFP and who awarded it?
Don't know.
I think
Selectmen?
I'm assuming would be Heather Harper at the time.
Maybe, again, we'll review that. So if you give us that information, we can take a look at that. Ken?
Yeah, I don't want to imply that at this point,
that's right,
it's critical for Habitat to come back with a single-house plan. I think what we're looking for is an assessment of what are the costs and benefits of going in one direction or the other, and how strong was the mandate for 2.
And that's why we want the background information, is we want to say, we're just the permitting authority. We weren't the ones that sent out the RFP or awarded whatever was awarded. Okay?
Just for the boards, the duplex 4-unit is right around the corner from my house, and I was a little concerned about the density on that small piece of property. Granted, there's woods behind it, it's not in the center of town. It's absolutely amazing how that has turned into a little village for those units, and it's so cohesive, and they have yard cleaning parties and landscaping, and it just is its own community, and I don't want them to think that I am looking at a one unit yet.
No, no. I'm just saying, you've heard the board discuss that, we've heard about the 12-foot wide.
Great job.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is, we have to weigh all of the concerns, and we'll look at. So, anything else that you need clarification from us? Certainly, you can follow up with Sari to make sure that she has anything. Sari, you all set with what we need?
I've got everything down in case
Okay.
we
Sounds good.
lost track or what.
So the next thing we need to do is select a date for you to come back, and Sari, I did not bring my list with me, but we need to give you enough time to, I mean, we've looked at, you have to look at whether or not you're going to modify the plot plan in terms of the subdivision. There's some updates to the plan, so
Well, it's sent.
the notice of, oh, we also have the Conservation Commission, so that's a big and important piece of it.
Yes, we do. It touches state, so we will need the finalization from conservation, unless they say something after it's state that it doesn't touch state regulations, state governing regulations.
I'm sorry, are you asking more parking of us or not asking more parking of us? Not asking.
We did not ask that. We asked you to consider
He
the...
gave you an idea.
That's right. I mean, I've given you a suggestion, there's been comments. The board was not unanimous on any of these comments, you're just hearing where we're going, okay? And obviously, if it comes down to one unit, you may have no parking issues. If it still remains 2 units, you heard some diversity on the board. That's the beauty of 7 members. It's going to come down to 3 that actually voted. Okay.
So what are you looking at, Jack, for Conservation Commission hearings?
Well,
I
I
mean,
file
because-
tomorrow, it would be 3 weeks for the hearing and another 3 weeks for the decision.
And it does in fact affect the state
Well, you want my
limits?
opinion about the Conservation Commission?
No.
No. We have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen on Monday you could come to.
What I mean by that is, because it falls under the rules and regulations of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, it's my belief that this project...
Jack, if you wouldn't mind, we've got to capture this on TV, thanks.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
It's my strong belief, because the review process is by only the state regulations, not the local bylaw, this should be approved as it's presented today. So any alteration of it, I believe, would be approvable too. Having said that, it's usually a 42-day process from the time of submission to the time the decision's written.
And how does the board want to entertain that, since we already know it does affect the state? Do you want to, this is a 40B project, and if they have to weigh in on state regulations, do you want to wait for the final decision?
I think that makes sense.
I think we always have.
Okay, well, that just helps me
Right.
in knowing,
Right,
so we're looking into May.
May.
right.
How about May 17th?
Is that one of our regular meeting days, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you want to make it a different day? I haven't scheduled anything for that.
Not necessarily, but we do try to do our 40Bs by themselves.
I realize
Yeah.
that. With our opening, do you want to do this, the follow-up by itself as well?
It's up to the board.
No, I think we should try to do it on May 17th.
Yeah, but your question is, do you want it to be the only one on May 17th?
We can answer that down the road. We don't have to-
Right, let's wait and see how critical, maybe if
No,
there's
she
one...
needs to know that
Well, if
now.
nothing is scheduled yet, she can fill in to make it doable.
It is a regular night that I have set aside. Do you want to do May 10th at 5 o'clock? Do you like these 5 o'clock ones?
Well, just so you, again,
I don't like them either.
we have tried to separate our comprehensive permits because it's shifting gears all the time from a 40A application to a 40B application.
I'm going to make a motion.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion that we continue it to May 10th at 5 o'clock.
10th?
May 10th.
I second that.
Thank you.
She said the 17th.
No, May 17th.
All right, we have a motion to continue this till, I'm sorry,
Excuse me, I was just going to ask, did you say 5?
yeah.
May 10th at 5? And David seconded? Correct?
Scott did it?
Sir?
David.
Oh, David, I'm
One
sorry.
week.
All right, is that a date that everyone anticipates being able to participate in?
That's okay.
Okay. folks okay with that?
Thank you very much.
All right. All those in favor of continuing this hearing until May 10th at 5 p.m., say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Thank you very much for your assistance and participation. We look forward to seeing you again in May.
Thank you for your time.
All right. All right. We are going to continue with the rest of our meeting, and I'm going to ask the board that we take a quick 2-minute break, and then we're going to take Jerry first, because he
the agenda.
I can't even get a town car.
I was going to say, who has the town car? All right. Thank you, Frank. And we are back. We have a few additional items on our agenda. We wanted to talk about our upcoming discussion with the Board of Selectmen on Monday, additional agenda items. But one of the things that we were going to talk about for possible discussion with the Board of Selectmen was the nutrient management bylaw. Cerie sent that out to all of you, which was the latest reiteration. Jerry was good enough to volunteer to come this evening. I'm sorry that I kept you an hour after what I thought might happen. So Jerry's going to just give us a little bit update on that. We can have some discussion. I've got a recommendation, but at least to give Jerry the opportunity. He's been very
Jerry Patamas Town wastewater superintendent. As some of you may know, the nutrient management bylaw came about because 0% financing for wastewater project is predicated upon meeting the O'Leary bill. And there was a statutory paragraph that there were no regulations on. John Waterbury worked hard at it. He's been working hard at it probably since New Silver Beach to try to merge wastewater issues with nutrient management, public health, and growth. And that's always controversial. About a year ago, Brian Curry, and another building on John's work and working with John, I forget now, came up with a revised bylaw that was, in some respects, in my mind, simpler from the previous one. I think it achieved the same goals, and in my mind, it almost exactly meets the statutory requirements of. The statutory requirements are, after you put sewers in, you cannot have any more growth than you could have had before. Now, that doesn't mean no growth, it just means you have to manage your vacant lots, your redevelopment, and things like that to accommodate zoning, land use, and wastewater regulations. And then after that, it gets very, very confusing for a variety of reasons. The state came out with their final set of SRF regulations, and I just circulated this amongst, I asked Brian to recirculate it to the folks and back to Matt, and I also circulated it to the Water Quality Management Advisory Committee. They're postponing decision on that for a while. One, because it has just come out. Two, I think they do want to see if the county wants to step forward and come up with a model bylaw so that each town doesn't have to go through the same discussions on what this means and what that means. Not that you couldn't change it for the town character, but at least some of the basic definitions and the arguments wouldn't be rehashed in every town. So that's essentially where we're at. If you forgot about whether or not you needed to get 0% zoning,
financing,
0% financing, and I'm a little bit too close to it, but everybody will say sewers cause growth. I will say sewers can facilitate growth, but unplanned growth, in my mind, has always been poor planning and weak government. So that I think it's essential, even if we didn't have the 0% of people decide not to go after the 0%, but to maintain whatever community character is, to maintain whatever sense of growth management, not unbridled growth, but growth management. You need to consider the Planning Board, of course, the Board of Health, of course, the ZBA, of course, and I think DPW in there because we manage the sewer system. Not that we regulate how big a house can be. We just, if it gets through the other boards and we have capacity, that home can tie in. And it's the same way outside a sewer district area where there's no sewers, and you could say, well, usually the Board of Health is the controlling entity for how large a home you can have because of septic tanks. But if you think ahead and say, well, gee whiz, with these new ideas, let's say there's a magic bullet, compost toilets, all of a sudden maybe density now can be increased in those areas. So it gets back to the idea of we should have a comprehensive discussion amongst everybody. And, I would clearly recommend that the board support in front of the selectmen reconstituting, reinvigorating the need for Water Quality Management Committee, the Planning Board, the Board of Health, and Zoning Board of Appeals, and DPW to get together as a working group to work forward. I know I might show up, I might not show up. I also think it's been on the back burner for a while, but I go back to the wind turbine hearings and what the consultant told I think it was the Zoning Board of Appeals about, I could read these regulations any way you want me to. I think it is very important, and maybe this is me probably speaking more as a town manager or a government geek, good governance, that this is the time where we're not impacted by a lot of growth, that we look at our zoning regulations, how they impact with planning board. And I don't think it's going to be all that expensive. I think myself, it comes down to a desire of whatever. People don't want to do it. Someone doesn't want anybody else to do it. But I think the time has come that we slowly look at all these regulations as we try to plan for a comprehensive future. Sorry if I spoke too long.
Sure, thank you. I just want to try to bring the board up to date and remind everyone where we are. This actually came to us well over a year ago, initially with a presentation by John Waterbury. I'm not sure that that draft was ever approved by the Board of Health, but certainly he was a representative of the Board of Health. This board had several concerns. The concerns were regarding what was written as a variance procedure. There was concern regarding a Board of Health regulation actually driving density control. And the other that the board spoke strongly about was actually trying to bring in a consultant to try to bridge all of these issues. To have somebody look at making sure that there weren't contradictions in the zoning bylaw that would be contradicted by a Board of Health nutrient management bylaw. I had gone to a number of those meetings. We reported back. I also attended, as did Jerry, a number of the what we'll call the working group, which included Jerry, myself, John Waterbury, I think Bob Ahmet as an outsider came. Brian Curry came, I think, on occasions. Marlene McCollum had also come. The last time this board discussed the draft nutrient management bylaw is very similar to the one that you have, that I sent out earlier this week. We did it on May 19th. This version is July of 2011, and I would have to say they're just minor changes to it. But now since and interestingly enough, the Comprehensive Wastewater Quality Management Committee had not addressed it to our knowledge. As they did, we never became aware of it. But now the wastewater quality management, the Wastewater Quality Advisory Committee has. At least two individuals on that committee have taken a strict interest in it. So my suggestion to the board, and certainly we need to discuss it, is very similar to Jerry's, probably because we talked about it, but that we ask, and I think the last convener of that working group was Brian Curry. I think we need to have some subcommittee or working group attention to this again. Ken had volunteered to participate with me from this board, but I think now in particular that we have the Water Quality Management Advisory Committee entering into it, it's a new dimension that hadn't been brought up before, and I think it would be valuable if we tried to vet all of these issues, and Jerry did a great job in summarizing them, and part that we're closer to is the interpretation of the zoning bylaw and how that can be valuable in terms of the issues, and what pieces could be potentially modified within the zoning bylaw that could also work in conjunction with what this is being discussed. So those are my thoughts. Scott?
I think Jerry made a very good point. While there is a proverbial lull in the action with the way the economy, I see that we're feeling some momentum coming back, and this would be the time to address it while we have the time. If there was a building boom to come back or whatever, and this wasn't cleared up or addressed, I think it would behoove us to try to do that as soon as we can, in the event that the economy comes back like we all hope it will, and building starts back up and people start to loosen their wallets on additions and some restorations. I think it's the perfect time for us to get together and address that.
Questions or thoughts?
I like what he said about looking at the whole zoning bylaw, all our regulations, and just clean them up.
I think
have them work in common.
At the time, it wasn't overly expensive, but there were concerns. I thought there were some estimates in Bob Amont's sort of
said is probably right. It could be less than a week's worth of work, a couple of $1,000 maybe. I mean, you have to have an appropriate person, that knows it. I think it's one of these things that the thought scares people rather than just go out and do it. It's finding money is always an issue, but, if it's important, we find money.
But,
The alternative is expensive.
Alternative is poor, bad growth, poor planning, and, unbridled messes.
Unclear zoning bylaw book. Gets us in trouble all the time.
We're going to bring that one up next. So, again, my proposal is, and I think Jerry has sort of, agreed with that, is that we ask to have the working group reconvened. This board previously had agreed to both Ken and I participating in that, and that we bring back the recommendation of possibly having somebody look at a variety of it could be the subdivision control regulations, the zoning bylaw, Board of Health, wastewater regulations, et cetera, to make sure that they're all supporting one another in terms of what we're trying to do before we bring this to town meeting. Because in many ways, what Jerry has asked is, what's the zoning board's recommendation on this particular document? And I think it's premature at this point for us to do it.
But it's... The other thing in this is, I'm not quite sure, not quite an expert on town government. I'm not sure anybody is, but they think they are. What happens when you get one or two people from your board, one or two people from another board? That's really not an open meeting because it's not, and I don't mean to skirt the open meeting, but I don't want to be hamstrung by it. I mean, if there's subcommittees, I think that constitutes open meeting. If it's a subcommittee of two, you have to post it. So I don't know what the proper terminology would be for a working group.
Yeah. Well, that's something we can always get.
And maybe you should have posted,
I mean, my own thoughts are, the more open these things are at the beginning, the better off they will be all the way down the road. I think this board is not experienced in doing things outside of an open meeting, so our reaction is always, make it public, you post it. If people come, it's usually good reason.
It just means there's an added dimension of administration.
Yep.
And, someone's going to have to take control of the meeting.
Ken has been acting clerk on this board for so many times that I'm sure he would volunteer to take minutes, et cetera.
The minutes, I'd take minutes.
Maybe not.
But posting, I think what Jerry's saying is someone has to post it with adequate notice, and then you're constrained to certain meeting dates, that's all.
But we'll address that. This, again, we haven't actually voted a subcommittee. It's just been an understanding that this board would like to have two individuals go, would be Ken and myself.
But I agree with you, about the openness. I mean, it should be open, and people should be able to come.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So I think that's where our recommendation is. We will put that in writing, Jerry, and we'll send it to you. We'll send it to Brian as the last person who convened it. And
maybe to the town manager? I mean,
that's a good idea.
Town manager of the Board of Selectmen, because every now and then I exceed my pay grade, but it's well-intentioned.
But if we upped your pay grade, we wouldn't have a problem.
No.
All right,
I have one question. What did you say that somebody just released, SRF?
State Revolving Fund. That's just an acronym for loans. 0% loans.
Sewer
Relief Fund.
State Revolving Fund. Okay.
Otherwise known as sewer revolving fund.
Could be something else revolving.
Which, and speaking of that, you can get 0%, you can get 2%, but, sometimes going for the 0% is not necessarily the smartest thing if it's going to totally close down growth. Right.
And I did pass it out to everyone, a copy of the article.
Steve Rafferty, who's on the committee, is extremely bright, and he makes a great statement, 2% you're saving, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing a service to town.
Yeah, but I think he totally misinterpreted, because Jerry said it very clearly. The bylaw doesn't say no growth.
It says no more growth.
It says no more growth than you could do right now.
And that was...
So Rafferty completely, I think he's very bright too, and I've talked to him extensively about things. But that's not what this bylaw says. So I think we should be very clear about that.
And I think that's the
That's
value
right.
of us.
That's
wanna
the
make
discussion
sure.
that needs to be had.
Right.
In understanding.
Right out front.
Because remember also, within that is, you got 500 pounds of sewer within the sewer district. It can all go to one development if that's what the town
I
chooses.
mean, Jerry, maybe
And they lock out everybody else.
Because there's a little bit of sort of obtuse legalese in here in that it says,
I did not write it.
under Section D, and maybe you could just clarify this so we all understand. Determination of flow, sewage flow shall be determined in accordance with provisions set forth in 310 CMR 15.203.
Title V.
Right. What sewage flow are they talking about? 110 gallons per day per person? Is that?
Well, that's one interpretation. If it's a vacant lot and it's a restaurant, you get so much flow per stool. But that is a Title V regulation that is not necessarily what professional engineers would use to design sewers. That is why we added in there language or any other flow mechanism that's acceptable to the state.
But basically, then later on, you're saying, okay, flows must, conform to these flows. So that's where the limitation comes in, right? It's to meet that flow requirement.
Yes, but to meet...
So you need a number.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm asking.
Well,
It's
but
actually a question.
you have to first determine flow. The best way to determine flow is water meter, and we have a lot of water meters.
But then what's allowable flow?
What's allowable flow? If it's under Title V, we go to the Board of Health. If it's under wastewater, if it does not exceed the capacity within the treatment plant, okay? From my perspective, it's acceptable. However, then you look at, you can't have a regulation that says...
What if it's a property not hooked up to the sewers?
Then it's Title V.
Right.
Okay.
That's why you have back and forth. But the question is, when you get into a one-bedroom or two-bedroom or three-bedroom, you're trying to hit a fly with a machine gun. It doesn't matter. You have to look at the total picture. And that's why wastewater flow capacity, the law says flow. They meant nitrogen, or they meant growth. They didn't put it in for political reasons, and that's what we're wrestling. They didn't want to have a translator mechanism. I'm sorry, I get too passionate on this.
Yeah, but I think it's important for us to understand the implications a little bit. So what comes to mind is, okay, so until you get to the last house that exceeds the acceptable flow within any one project, is there a limit?
Of course. Because the plan was approved based on existing homes, existing vacant lots. There were allocations, I'm talking about wastewater, allocations that those lots would have certain flows based on the land use and zone.
So you would look at the sewer area, you would say there's this much potential for build-out, which gives you X gallonage per lot.
We don't get that fine X gallonage per lot.
But there have been differences along the way. At one point, the entire town was considered to be a nutrient-sensitive zone.
That was a more restrictive requirement,
right.
okay? Because then he was, like, everything was going to be in a, area of concern, like being in a well.
Exactly, like a state two.
Yeah, so that's what I was looking for, thank you.
And Jerry proposed, and we've discussed, and this is why I think the working group needs to refine this before larger groups start to take action on it, about being able to take capacity from one area of town, move it to another area.
Within the watershed.
Within the watershed.
That's acceptable to the regulatory bodies of the town. It's not up to me if there's, let's say, Lot B, which could have had 12 gallons but hasn't been developed, and now they want to take 6 of those gallons and allocate it to someone else. That's a planning and a legal question.
And coming back to that, the other piece of it, and we've wrestled with this a lot, is, is the zoning bylaw supporting where ultimately the town wants to go? So if for some reason there's a change in density based on zoning requirements that everyone, there's grandfathering opportunities, et cetera, and everyone gets to know what they are before they build, that also gives the wastewater superintendent the ability to figure out how much capacity there is. So they have to work in conjunction. I don't think you can segregate any one of these things out.
But you can't do the build-out analysis unless you understand the zoning, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Scott.
Jerry, there's adjustment in flow, too, to facilitate run and everything else, though, correct?
I don't follow what you mean. What do you mean by...
Well, calculated flow, I'm trying to... That's a paper term, though, right? I mean, calculated flow.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the working operations of the sewer itself. Is that determined, I mean, is there variances in that?
We work with average daily flow, because then you can get into max daily, max monthly, and they fluctuate. And so that's the reason where flow, measured water use is always less than the Title V allowance.
So you can't get that exact, I mean, I'm not...
On paper, I can get it.
Exact, that's what I'm trying to get you. On paper, you can get it exact, but in the working limits of the concrete, it's going to be, well, I mean, the working...
If you take a 2-hour shower in your house every day,
right.
I have no...
You know my son?
He's a teenager. He's, as you said before, there's no perfect solution.
But again, this is somewhat of the dialogue that did happen, because on one hand, if you're measuring, water meters and somebody has a lawn sprinkling system, how much water are they using, how many people, et cetera. So, it's never going to be an absolute perfect situation. Right now, as we already talked about, Title V uses 110. There are other calculations for commercial, restaurant, et cetera. But why don't we, I think this has been valuable, why don't we sort of, again, make the recommendation that we go back to a working committee, that Ken and I will be the ones that go from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Our issues remain the same. The integration of all of the various bylaws, particularly our concern is the zoning bylaws, and we'll keep an eye open for, that variance procedure we were concerned about, and obviously we'd report back to this board.
And Andy Gottlieb from the Water Collaborative is going to be talking to the Water Quality Management Committee next Thursday. So you may want to, if people are interested, may want to sit in, because I think he's going to touch on that.
The issue of these.
I think he's going to touch on that in regionalization.
Okay. Except that next Thursday, you better be here.
Right, their meeting is...
Same time as ours.
Yes, I just let the general public know.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
If I don't see you here, I'll be looking for you somewhere else. Jerry, thank you very much for the time and for spending the time with us as well. Okay. Back to our discussions for the meeting with the Board of Selectmen. I had to make a decision earlier today because in order to post our agenda for Monday, and I did leave off the nutrient management bylaw discussion with the Board of Selectmen, and my feeling was with what I knew already in discussion with Jerry, that it would be premature, because to bring the Board of Selectmen in at this time on something that we're not really sure of would be premature.
Yep.
What I do want to say to you is that I was very pleased that the Board of Selectmen, we are, other than they have an executive session and some summary action items and minutes, we are their sole agenda item for Monday, and they've given us an hour and a half. So that we can have a very full and thorough discussion with the board. The items that we have posted on our agenda, and the selectmen, I believe, have today as well, at least before the end of the day they were to do that, are the enforcement issues that I'm going to ask Scott to talk about, streamlining the regulatory permitting process, and the professional review of the zoning bylaws. So why don't we just briefly get on one by one, get a sense of what we're talking about, but I want to encourage, and I understand everyone will be able to attend on Monday, so we will have this good, hopefully free-flowing discussion with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So Scott, I had asked you where you brought it up last week to sort of jump in on the enforcement.
We had kind of touched on enforcement, kind of, I'm not going to say prematurely, and there was some movement on the board in agreement, and we felt like it was an important issue. Ken, I know, had some concerns, and he wanted some input in it, and Trish on occasion, everybody on the board. We have to find, or ask them to help us find, a way that when decisions are written, and people spend money on plans, and we take up our good time as well, that when we drive by a project that we know is in violation, it seems like nobody does anything about it. There's got to be a correction, and I'm just going to say it out loud. There's got to be a correction for the asking for forgiveness instead of permission. These are the people that are coming to us for relief. When you do that, I feel like you should be set to the conditions that is set by this board, or you do not go forward with your project. I mean, it's disrespectful to everybody involved to have a decision, come here, nod your head, say, yeah, pay a guy, and go right back to what you're doing. We have to find a way collectively to put some kind of limitations, some kind of further enforcement, I'm going to say it, fines, warnings, something to make people accountable. When they come here, they make a conscious choice of asking for relief. Now, I know I'm new, but I live in this town too. I drive the roads, I see it, and now that I've been on this board, I see it even more. All right? Every one of us here, and I'm not making it about us, but every one of us have other lives. We volunteer our time. We all know what's going on.
Yeah, it's not, I think you've said it beautifully, but it's really not about us.
It isn't.
What we're here for, the way I look at it, is certainly to grant relief to applicants, but also to protect the rest of the town, the abutters. That's an important function, you know, and that's really why it's important to enforce these things.
And that's why we're here.
People come here in good faith to say, I have an issue with this, that, or the other thing going on in this project, and we accept their input, make a recommendation for a change or a condition for a change, then they have a right to expect that that change is implemented.
And, you know, to marry those two ideas, we grant relief, that's what we do, under certain conditions. And if the conditions weren't agreed to or met, we never would have given the relief. So it's the half a loaf. The other half a loaf isn't seen to be there because, in retrospect, the relief would not have been granted if we, and, you know, if you look back and, you know, and I gave you a comment of the League of Women, the article of the League of Women Voters, the report that was done. And, you know, this board does a great job in terms of thinking through their findings, their conditions, and they're there for a reason. And it's very difficult because we've all got the questions. I got them from Ken when he was on the planning board. How could you have approved that? Well, we did with certain conditions, but those conditions aren't being met, and there's not much hope that we can do. What I was thinking we might be able to do in terms of a little bit of a structure for the Board of Selectmen, though, is perhaps to ask Sari to give just a brief, because Sari's going to participate with us just as she always does in all of our board meetings, a little summary of what the enforcement is today, and set the framework of, you know, what we're allowed to do as a zoning board, what we're not allowed to do, who does what, etc. And again, I think as Scott said, this isn't trying to, you know, say that somebody isn't doing their job. What I think the discussion really needs to be framed as, how can we do better with enforcement? Because, I mean, we've heard many times that enforcement is done based on complaints. Is that a good enough system for this town?
Well, keeping in mind that a portion of the people that come before us are already in violation, that's why they come to us. You know what I'm saying? So they were going to have to be, there was going to have to be some enforcement done anyway, whether it's just a matter of time, whether a neighbor complains or someone comes up and gives them that little ticket that they have to come.
And, you know, there may be systems that are already in place that are not being fully taken advantage of.
Well, not only in this town, but what do other towns do? there must be some precedents elsewhere in the Commonwealth where is active enforcement. How does that work?
Well, some towns
Zoning
can-
commissioner is the zoning enforcement in most towns. And Falmouth is a little bit larger town, and they've had
An
a
assistant.
part-time enforcement agent and then went to a full-time. Unfortunately, the second full-time, one resigned, another one was hired, and then he resigned. He got a great job offer, but he couldn't refuse, so they are interviewing now for another enforcement.
But also, the
agent.
job description for that individual was
Is for
modified, and it works for
conservation.
conservation as well as zoning. And if I'm not mistaken, most of the time since that changed has gone to conservation.
And I don't want to come at them, and this is personally, I don't want us as a board to come at them like we want to hand out spankings, or we want to, look into people's backyards. But a lot of the decisions that we vote on are for public good and public safety. I mean, though, you listen to each other. I mean, most of what we talk about are to protect the public. Well, if we just say that and people just arbitrarily go about doing what they were doing before, how is that being served?
But what I'd like to do, and I think we do as well as a board, is to try to be as constructive as possible for the Board of Selectmen. And, we're not going to answer it on Monday night, but I think we have the time. It would be great to start the dialogue. It may require reviewing, what procedures we have. It may require looking at what alterations to whether the zoning bylaw, or whatever we need to do that may conceptualize zoning enforcement being part of this office, the zoning.
Or some other office.
Or some, whatever. And,
Could be the planning office, could be I don't know.
Scott's idea, for example, of putting in place, the possibility of fines. We don't ever want somebody not to come and correct a problem that they have, but we really, I think, want people to, I know that in the various reiterations of this board that I've sat on, there were times that this board said, we're not going to grant you the new special permit or the relief because you have been in violation. That may be too extreme, but on the other hand, I think the analogy I think of is, if you go speeding, you're going to get a ticket, you're going to get a fine. After 4 tickets, you're probably going to lose your license. But, we don't have that.
It's only 3.
Is it only 3? See, I'm not, you know that better than I do. Oh, okay.
I think he's bringing his son back into this.
But, so, I think, this has been in my annual report, the issue of enforcement to the Board of Selectmen for the past 3 years that I've been chairman. And it probably will be in this 4th year as chairman. So I think it's certainly a good topic. It's one that we should try to be as constructive as possible, to have everyone be on the same page. And that's why if Sari can do a little presentation in terms of where the enforcement is, what we're allowed to do, her knowledge of other communities would be helpful. And it may require that we all have to do some homework when we walk away from Monday's meeting in terms of, okay, let's look at things. It may be requesting town council to look at what opportunities might be. But if we don't get the Board of Selectmen on the same wavelength with us, we're not going to go anywhere with enforcement. Okay. So any other thoughts?
Scott, I can hear Scott's frustration. I think when we're all new on the board, we come and we sit here and we make these great decisions, and we all, hash out what Ken feels and what Dennis feels, and we leave here and say, wow, that was a great decision. We followed the zoning bylaw. It was fair to the town. It was fair to the applicant. And then, as Scott says, Sunday morning, he's in his car and he drives by XYZ's house and goes, oh my God, what the heck? That's not what we approved. 6 weeks later, guess what? That's still not what we approved. It's not even close, and the people are living in the house and the project's done.
And what do we go to Eladio and complain? That's kind of,
And there may be an opportunity that comes out of this for the staff to get together and come up with suggestions. I know that the staff have got together in the past and attempted to approve things, but, I was saying just not too long ago that we invested a lot of money in the municity system in the town, where everyone is supposed to share information, and maybe there are opportunities, cooperative opportunities, that various departments may be able to weigh in and say, even, for example, the assessors, you go out and, do a visit at a house and do an assessment, and you say,
You're gonna be looking at
why is there an accessory structure here? Why, with a kitchen in it?
And if people start to say, we're going overboard, and they're still in violation, well, then shame on them. I'm of the opinion that when you invite me onto your lot, and something is in plain view in violation, it's hard for me personally to walk by that and not make that an issue and come here and we all pretend that it's not taking place because we can't talk about it.
Yep. Ron Erickson's not here, but one of the things that Ron used to always say was, look at the mission statement. And I would suggest that you do that before Monday's meeting, because it does talk about giving relief, but adhering to all of the bylaws, rules, and regulations of the town. And I think the message that we want to give the selectmen and to the town is that is our role, to give relief. But it is within the rules and regulations, and if that part of it isn't upheld, and we don't have the power to do that. We've been told so many times.
And wouldn't we be, as a board, and again, I'm asking this rhetorically, I would imagine, more apt to grant more relief if we knew that people that we were granting relief to were going to would abide by what we set forth, because you'd have a better sense about what was going to happen going forward?
I'm not sure that would happen, but I think we owe it to the town to say that we're giving you an assurance. That the town gives you back an assurance that when there's relief, there's also protection that goes along with it.
I guess my question is, and I'll ask it to you, how many times, honestly, and you don't have to say which times it happened, but just since I've been here, someone's told us they were going to do something and everybody here thought to themselves, that's not going to happen. Or this sleeping arrangements, cooking, whatever, and we say, okay, but everybody nods their head in and the meeting's over, and we walk away knowing.
Well, maybe some of our bylaws are pretty stupid.
That's where we're headed with this though, Patty, right? I'm not saying they're stupid, but things need to be adjusted, right?
Yeah, they just don't reflect reality.
Because I'm going to make a personal statement now. When I get to the point on this board, and it may be tomorrow, when I feel like my time is being wasted here, or I'm not doing public good, and I'm not trying to be golden boy, I got on this board for a reason. When I feel like I'm not being useful to this board or this town, because that's just the way it's always been, I'll step down.
Okay. We're not going to do any of that. What I think this has been a lively...
I'm not making I'm just saying...
This has been a lively and good discussion. I think we don't want to completely discuss what we're going to do Monday night. So this is valuable. I think the way we're going to structure this Monday is, again, we're going to look at a little bit of what we understand is happening right now, and then we'll share our constructive thoughts with the Board of Selectmen. Thank you. All right. The next item was the streamlining the regulatory permitting process. And we have brought this up previously when we met with the board. It was October 18th of 2010. And there was an agreement from the board at that time that they would actually convene and have a workshop of all of the regulatory boards and various boards. And some of the things we talked about, and again, I think it's good because there's perhaps a new member on the board or two members or whatever. But, such things as we're used to seeing, for example, on a commercial project, site plan review that may take months before it ever gets here. And when you string out the amount of time that it takes for somebody to go through the process,
we've got design review, we've got, there are so many things, and is there a way without, and I mean, I don't want to step on anyone else's turf, but at least having a discussion. We have certain statutory things that we must do. Conservation has certain statutory things they must do. Board of Health has certain statutory things that they must do. But some of the other things may be simply town regulatory issues, and it would be certainly worthwhile. I don't think there's any disadvantage, and I think this is what the board felt before, of being at least able to streamline processes for an applicant. Doesn't mean they're going to get a yes at the end of the streamlined process, but it might shave off some months in time.
There's another
Like tonight.
side of that, which is one of the frustrations I used to have, I recall, especially when on the planning board, was projects would come in and they would be marginally acceptable to, and I think they craft them very carefully this way, to conservation, to zoning, to planning. But if you looked at the overall project, you might say, it really, taken all together, it's not a good project. And there is no way to turn something down, because when you take it in aggregate, it's a lousy project, and they just squeak by each board and do it piecemeal. I mean, there would even be cases in the planning board, they come to the planning board, they have such and such for site plan review, but we need to see what the zoning board says. And then they come to the zoning board, and you guys would say, nah, that doesn't matter, we can do it this way. Or they'd come to the planning board and say, zoning says we have to do it this way, so you can't make us do it that way. So they're playing boards against one another.
Well, generally with the last...
Nobody wants to make the decision on a bad project.
After site plan.
Well, I'm just saying that, whether they actually had, or whether they were saying, we're concerned that zoning will do this, therefore you have to do that.
But I think that's a good point, that in the process of streamlining, we can also have somehow a better control or review over things.
I asked at one of these, joint planning board selectmen meeting years ago, could we have sort of a cross-board working group, might, be at the staff level. Maybe that's already happens, but where there, those kinds of projects that are large enough, significant enough, that might be, eating at the edges of acceptability, could somehow get flagged, and we could all sort of look at them comprehensively.
I know the planning board was starting to do that, especially with these large projects, try to get the engineers, and like it was going to have to come before us, the Board of Health, and tried to get us kind of roundtabling it so that we could all review it and all, give suggestions. I know that was started just recently. I don't know if it's the fact that we don't have any major...
Yeah, right now, there's not a lot of pressure.
So that is something that...
It's kind of like a 40B,
And I think
only
that would
regular.
be great because we can all hear.
Right.
And it's not hearsay from, no offense to any contractors or attorneys or anything, but we'll be there to phrase our own questions to the technical.
And again, I think Ken was right, it's more at the staff level because we have to protect our ability to be judicial.
Exactly.
But, Sari, if participating in somewhat of a joint review, could then have questioned a variety of things and provide us more information when it comes to our review.
She could be saying, look, our board feels that the density is too high, and then maybe conservation, oh, yeah, we have this, and then you have sort of a couple people coming together say, let's reduce that density. It's, you might get by one board, but taken in aggregate, it should be
And
less.
again, the reason that we had wanted to invite all of the various boards together is that, and certainly I'm not picking on them, but an example of design review. Design review is simply recommending to the planning board, not to us, and yet we get referrals all the time from, design review. Is that an extra step? I don't know. Is that something that could be done by the planning board? I don't know. But these are the things that we need to discuss because I think a shorter, more succinct path for applicants to go through is better for them and better for the town.
That's right, because an instance is a local department in town will get something from the planning board.
Yeah.
While they are under their site plan review, of course they file with us. We don't have a hearing usually until after site plan review unless they've gone the whole thing. But then we'll send out referrals, and what they'll send us is what they sent to the planning board. Meanwhile, there's been revisions
Right.
done that I never get.
Right.
You know, until all of a sudden it's time, and this happens a lot, till it's time to come to the hearing, and it's like, then I've got to rush and get, what do you mean? You know, now all of a sudden you're giving me revised plans 2 days before the hearing.
We have
I've got
time to look at it.
to the engineers, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It's hell.
Do you guys think that the applications are complete enough when you read them in the files?
The applications have to be complete.
No, I mean,
In general.
Whether or not there's enough information.
I mean, what sparked me on that was when you read a 40B application, it answers a lot of the question, I mean, a lot of what's going on in that whole, I actually felt more prepared sometimes when I read the two that I've sat on than I do with a handwritten application. Personally, you know what I mean? And I'm just asking the question. Do you feel like that if the application itself was more...
Had more questions?
Had more information, that less questions would have to be answered on overlap?
Well, you can ask questions all you want, it'd be as specific as you want, but if the answers are so...
Well, that's what I'm saying. How many times have you asked questions, Dennis, and you still never got the answer? You got to wait till it's your turn again.
Bring it back,
We'd have to have one hell of a form designed to take into consideration all the different types of special
And even
permits,
then,
variances,
the public
appeals
will
that
find a
come
way to not answer the
before.
question.
So there's still going to be things that always get slip through then, if that's...
Why it's good to have a public hearing.
No, I'm not trying to be disparaging, I'm just...
There's only so much that we get submitted. You all know at the last minute, people submit stuff. And it's a butters as well.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the butters bring in something that can change your view of the whole project, and that's usually always done at the last minute. So then I got to rush to either send it to you or have you guys...
Is there anything written, though, that disparages people from doing that? And if they do that, would...
It's just our website that says, please get everything in a week.
Well, maybe that's something that needs to be
That's
addressed.
something we could do, is if you don't, if we could be stricter about
That
it.
would only happen a couple times,
We're not going to
Ken.
hear it if it wasn't here by X day.
And
You mean continue it?
Right.
Yes.
right, but that night, we're not going to hear it that
You
night.
guys realize that they have to agree to continue.
Right. You
They
don't
have
want to
to
get
agree to
into a
continue.
situation where there is a default.
Default, because we didn't hear it in a timely fashion, right?
Yeah. All right, just one other thing in terms of the application, some of the thoughts I had is that, everyone who applies to, Board of Health, you okay?
Yeah. I haven't been writing.
That's all right.
You have that, baby.
You'll remember
Put it
it.
together. But
You
every one
won't
of them,
sleep tonight.
in many ways,
Remembering the things.
puts together exactly the same information to every place they apply. Now, some of it's very different, but there could be a portion of like an omnibus application that just gets passed around to everyone with a different component to it. I mean, things that we could think of that would save money, help people out, and it doesn't have to be duplicated, but it's something we can think about. But anyway, I think we're on the same wavelength there about streamlining the regulatory permitting process, and I see both sides of it, that helps the town, helps the applicant. Let's see what we can do. The next is the professional review of the zoning bylaws, and one of the things that Suri and I have to get to the selectmen for their packets for the weekend, some information on this, and Suri and I were talking a little bit earlier, and if you look at the back of our zoning bylaw, the latest is December of last year, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of the changes that have been made to the zoning bylaw. And it's normally what happens. You change a little piece here, you change a little piece there, and it doesn't flow together. And so I think we've had this request for a long time, and I think for budgetary reasons, we've backed off of it. But I think it's time, again, to do it. What I'd like to ask each of you to do is to think of some little examples so that we can show the Board of Selectmen where it's a good example of that this no longer applies, it doesn't fit in, it's not easy. Because I was saying to both Scott and David when I was doing an orientation with them when they came on board that, after 9 years, I'm still learning about the zoning bylaw, because it's not the easiest.
It's all ridiculous.
So,
Look at it.
all right, so we got that one, and I guess that's it. And then we've asked for any feedback that the selectmen might have, and we will provide them a copy of the legal women voters report, which I thought was something we should all be proud of.
Yes, that was a very nice report.
Any agendas, any agenda items for...
Our next meeting is the 15th.
Yeah, well, let's get that. How about the following?
15th is...
We're going to be busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be too busy.
Not that anything that's been brought to our attention, so.
Somehow I inadvertently forgot to put minutes on our open meeting, but I would appreciate if the board would review these, would...
I did, and I
vote on them.
there.
Okay.
March 1st.
It's always on there, and I don't know how because we changed the agenda so many times.
Has everybody looked at them? There's only 2 initials.
It's just March 1st, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I did not.
And I wasn't here.
You want to table them?
Do you want to look at them, or do you trust the
Patty
initials?
wasn't here.
I wasn't here.
Wasn't here.
That's a recusal.
Recusal. You...
Dennis wasn't here.
I was not here, so I did not initial it.
Oh, okay. I don't know whose that is.
You
then.
all set?
Oh, it's Scott's.
I didn't glance at it. I didn't, sorry.
All right,
I sent them out to everyone.
We'll put her
Yeah, I
off
looked
to the
at 'em.
15th. We've got drafts posted on the, I think everyone knows that we post draft minutes to our website. So, and Sri sends them out, but in case, you
just need an initial at the top.
because we want to comply with the open meeting law, and so within 10 days, we always post draft minutes. They don't have to be finalized and posted until after we vote them in, but, so take a look at them for the next time we get together. Okay? All right, anything else to come before this board? Then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Is it 8 o'clock?
We started.
You guys almost hit the 3-hour mark.
Yes.